So Hunt was always the plan for Bryce on Midgard, but they knew that Bryce was a world walker, right? They knew that the other piece of Theostar was on Prithian.
They needed a plan for Prithian.
Did they have a contingency plan for Prithian,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that brings us to Azriel.
I need the caffeine.
Well, that's perfect because that's what my banter topic's going to be about. I think I'm about to embark on a journey that I never thought I would embark on. I think, and we'll see if I stick with this. And I will give listeners an update if they want to know.
You are not about to cut out caffeine.
I think I might switch to decaf coffee. I know. I was drinking my coffee this morning, and I was like, half an hour ago, I felt really good.
Mhm.
And now I've drank most of this coffee, and now I feel like pretty shaky and like not great. And like, I don't want to feel that way. So I think I'm going to try decaf coffee. And to make this a more fun, interactive banter section, I've actually gone out and purchased a bag of nice artisanal decaf coffee. And I've made some, and I thought I would try it on mic to see if it's any good.
I mean, I think decaf coffee tastes good. If I were ever to go caffeine free, I think I would just not drink coffee. Like, why are we drinking decaf coffee? There are better things in life to drink.
Well, I love the flavor of it. I love the ritual of it. Hold on, let me try this. This has been sitting here for 10 minutes, so it's nice and cool now, I think, hopefully. Although it's still
Okay.
steaming.
All right, let's see.
All right, pause, listeners. I know you're on the edge of your seat. That's not great. It's a little weak.
There's always tea.
This is going to be hard. I don't know.
I really like any form of black tea with like milk or cream, and I don't drink coffee with milk or cream. So I have gone through stints where I'm like, oh, I want to lessen my caffeine intake. Let me drink tea instead of coffee. And a cup of black tea, I'm pretty sure has like not so different of a caffeine content as decaf coffee, because decaf coffee can't actually be caffeine free.
Yeah. I just really like the taste. I think I could grow to like the taste of tea. I think I could.
If you love coffee, I'm not gonna. I respect your choices.
What I want to do is trick my body. So don't listen, body, right now. I want to trick my body into thinking it's still having caffeine, even though it's not.
Okay.
Right.
see.
So like my mind is just, okay, it's 5:30 in the morning. I'm just going through my normal steps. It's just that this bag that I'm reaching for is decaf coffee beans rather than caffeinated coffee beans.
I see. How soon after you wake up are you consuming coffee typically?
Like within 20 minutes, probably, because I make it from scratch. So like, it's like the first thing I do. Like I'll wake up and I'll go put the water on to start making my coffee. But then the whole thing probably takes about 20 minutes. Like I'll make it and then I'll let it sit because I don't like it being super hot. I'll let it sit. I'll start reading a book or open my laptop or something. And then like in like 10 minutes, I'll have a sip. And it's like, well, here's why I noticed it this morning, because usually I'll go for a run pretty soon after that. So like if I feel weird, I'm like, oh, I'm just on my run. Like that makes sense. But today I was just sitting on my deck and I was like, I feel like fucking garbage. Like I feel really bad right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll try it. It might be a vice that I can't shake. It's okay. Actually, I think coffee's very good for you. I don't think it gets to be called a vice anymore, but
I think 1 cup is good.
yeah. And I typically only have 1 cup, but
Got it. Well, that's exciting. Excited to try new things.
yeah,
I think it is.
it's a journey. It's a journey. We'll find out how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gone through many phases, caffeine and I. Almost all in the forms of coffee with the exception of my tea experiment. But I think I have, Connor might overhear this and text me like you're lying to everybody right now. But I think I have made significant strides, because I used to be I wake up and immediately pour 2 shots of espresso over ice and consume it within 6 minutes of
Yeah, because
of
you don't
rising.
even make coffee. You just have that shit ready to go.
We had an automatic espresso machine. That was a thing that existed for a while. And then we got rid of said automatic espresso machine. We actually gave it to our friend Jenna because it was like too high in upkeep for us, but it was like such a good machine that we were like, if somebody likes cleaning it, which Jenna's husband loves cleaning it, then they should take it.
That fits.
adores it. Like every time I come over, I feel like he's having his Sunday clean of the espresso machine. Anyways, so now I have like a pour over, and then like most frequently we'll do cold brew. But I will be awake for like a full hour sometimes before I touch coffee. So I'm not
Yeah.
really that reliant on it to like be awake anymore. It's more like if I'm about to like speak to a human at work, I would prefer to have, something in there to just zhuzh things up,
Yeah, and you know what? I wake up no problem. Like, I don't lie in bed. I just wake up and I'm up. So I'm like, I don't really know that I actually even need the caffeine. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll do an experiment. I'll report back in a week or two. Let you guys know how it's going if this is good content.
Well, on a sort of related note, remember I got the new Aura Ring after being cold off the Aura Ring for years. And I think I have a methodology that works well for me. I look at it one time per week and I just scroll
Okay.
through the week's worth of data. And I'm like, what happened this week? Like, how did things go for me generally? And I'm enjoying having the data. I will say, like, I'm learning things about myself, like, I don't sleep that much. That's not good.
We knew that about you, though.
I know, but like, I guess I always I felt it when I didn't have a good night of sleep, where I was like, I didn't sleep well this week, or like, I didn't sleep well last night. But I felt like generally this week I was like, okay, I didn't sleep a lot, but I felt normal. But it seems like I generally just exist in the 5 to 6.5 hour window of sleep and like just don't feel any better or worse for doing so.
No, I'm the same way. I think I'm like 6 to 7 hours a night, honestly, because I wake up really fucking early.
Yeah.
But I don't have any wearables telling me, hey, you only slept 6 or 7 hours last night. You should not be feeling so great. So I think my brain is just like, I'm good. We're good to go. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I still feel that way, but now I just like have the information. I'm like, oh, I guess this is just what I'm like.
I think it's a female thing because my mom got a Fitbit. And it was like the same, like her body battery every day when she got a normal amount of sleep was like 3%. She was like, this is not possible. Like I'm an adult. I'm a functioning adult. I get enough sleep. Like for me, like, I think it's just like, I don't know, maybe it takes time to adjust to you, or maybe like, I don't know, we women can just function with much less sleep than the average person. I don't really know what it is, but
yeah, I do think it's possible that it's still like it takes time to learn you. It's so interesting, right? I'm curious, like, whether we just need to be doing more research into like female anatomy in general, because there was that whole study that came out and like went viral, right? About how women are supposed to physically need more sleep than men.
Really?
Like, this doesn't seem right. Yeah, there's supposedly need 9 hours. Like, we're supposed to be the upper range of the 7 to 9 hour window. I would say most of the people I know fall on the us side of the spectrum, but my sister could sleep for 10 to 12 hours every single night and feel normal. So I don't know. Maybe it's a biased cohort that I live within.
I wake up between 5 and 5:30 every day, pretty much regardless of when I went to sleep. And I want to be clear, I don't set an alarm. This is just what happens. This is just my body. And I don't think I'm better because I wake up early. I also want to be clear about that.
I actually think I'm worse, to be honest.
I actually think I'm worse. Yeah. But like, I wake up because I'm like, I can go sit out on the deck and listen to the birds and have some alone time, have some me time. I might not have this for the rest of the day. So I think I'm like excited to wake up. Like I want to wake up. I feel like that's part of it. And as you drink your matcha and I drink my coffee, shall we start this episode?
Let's.
All right. Hi, I'm Abby.
I'm Ronnie.
And this is Dragons in the Details, the podcast that helps you better understand your favorite fantasy books through a series of deep dive episodes. This season, we are covering Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Every time. Disclaimer. This episode will contain Crescent City and ACOTAR spoilers, all 8 published books as of July 2026. If you were with us last season, you know why we did that. It's because we covered ACOTAR last season. So we've covered ACOTAR, we have covered Crescent City. If you're here, you know the books intersect very much. So we have both Crescent City and ACOTAR spoilers. We do not have Throne of Glass spoilers at the front. We will have a separate section at the end for Throne of Glass spoilers. So we will talk about it. We just keep it spoiler free for the most part. Other disclaimer, this podcast is rated R. These are spicy books. We use spicy words. Each week, we dive into a specific topic in depth This week, we are diving into Midgard's super powerful and special magic Starborn princess, which we will get into what each of those words means in that nickname, by the way. Bryce Adelaide Quinlan herself. This is part 1 of a 2-part deep dive covering Bryce. So we're going to make a little special note here, guys. We are doing 2 Bryce deep dives. So this is part 1 of 2, as just mentioned. We are then going to do a Hunt deep dive, and then we are going to do an entire episode on the question of Bryce and Hunt being mates, and we are going to talk about Bryce-Riel and the entire theory, the entire fandom. Some of our Discorders have submitted some excellent material. I'm really excited to talk about it, about Bryce-Riel. We will have an entire episode dedicated to that. So if you hear this episode and you're like, wait, you guys didn't talk about this, there's more to come. So patience, that's all I'm asking for. A little bit of patience. I think it's going to be a really fun journey. We come with receipts. We have quotes to back up our theories so you can follow along if you're skeptical. Ronnie, do you want to do announcements?
Yes. So announcements. We have a bookshop. If you didn't know already, we've announced it the last few weeks, but if you would like to support us and you like supporting your local bookstore, the best way to support your local bookstore is to shop local. So you probably already do that, but the next best way, if you'd like to support us too, is to buy from your local bookstore through our bookshop link. And that is an affiliate link that supports us too. So if you'd like to use it, thank you in advance. It's linked in the show notes. We also, you might have noticed by now, are releasing an additional series on, I'm going to say Thursdays. We'll see if that changes, but I believe it's going to be Thursdays.
I think Thursdays.
I'm going to roll with Thursdays. We're recording this before it's officially out, but it'll be out by the time you guys hear this. That's how time travel podcast recording magic works. And we're talking about shows that we're watching, books that we're reading, things that we're not necessarily diving deep into to this degree, but we read stuff that's not just rereading Sarah J. Maas, rereading the Empyrean. So we want to talk about it. We want to talk about the shows we watch, the books that we read, and more stuff for you guys. So that is, the first couple episodes are free, and then that will become a subscriber exclusive show. So if you'd like to support us in that way, that is also running and available. So super fun. We're really excited about it.
I think we had some surprisingly insightful conversations based on what I thought we were going to talk about versus where we ended up. So as per usual, it's fun, but there's some depth to it, hopefully. We hope you think there's some depth to it.
Yeah, certainly. I wouldn't categorize it as just chatting, but I also wouldn't say that we're
not going to get a Pulitzer or anything, but
yeah, we don't dissect and, receipt necessarily the way that we do on this show, which is okay. So our first one was on Off Campus. If you like Off Campus, the show on Amazon Prime, would suggest going and checking that one out. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed recording it. I hope you guys enjoy listening to it. Deep dive music, as always, brought to you by Schwoodley, Schwoodley. You guys know this by now. Abby's marrying him. He taught her to floss. Very exciting stuff. We have some other fun stuff coming. Not going to spoil it here, but we will be announcing those fun things on Discord first. So if you don't already subscribe to our Discord, would suggest joining that Discord now. The Discord is linked in the show notes. And Discord eats first most of the time, guys. So if you want to keep up with what's happening, the Discord is free to join and will stay free to join always. So just join. It's fun. You'll get all the updates first.
And it's like a theory bonanza. Theory Central, always chatting theories. It's a great place. We love it.
Theory bonanza, truly.
Theory bonanza.
Yeah. One of our mutuals on TikTok who's also a theory queen, her name is Cheryl. We DM a decent amount. She DM'd me and was like, hey, so I hear you guys have a Discord. And I've heard a lot about this Discord and the theories on this Discord. Can I have the link to the Discord? I was like, absolutely, you can have the link to the Discord. So guys, it's a theory haven. You should join it. It's pretty fun.
And those links, by the way, are in all of our social media bios and also in our show notes. And you can DM us if you want to join. So the links are available.
The links are everywhere. They're in the show notes. They're in the bios. But I'll just send it to you if you ask nicely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Penultimately, fun questions. We're doing fun questions from you all this season. You are much better at writing them than us, and we love answering your fun questions. So if you would like your fun question to be answered on air, please send your fun questions preferably about Crescent City or ACOTAR or both, to us via DM, comment, contact form on our website, dragonsofthedetails.com. We love answering your fun questions. We answer them every week. And finally, You guys know this already, but wherever you listen, wherever you're watching us right now, if you don't already subscribe to that channel, please do. It really helps us out a lot. We are working on, you guys already see it, bringing you way more than just this episode every week, which we love doing for you, but we're trying to grow. We're trying to bring you way more. We love building this community and speaking with you guys and hearing from you guys every week. And the more subscribers we have, the more engagement we have, the more we're able to do that. So thank you in advance. Cool. Back to you.
All right. Fun question for this week. Speaking of our fun question submissions, this is from Anastasia, one of our top Discorders, general all around great person, Anastasia. So thank you, Anastasia. The question is, Ronnie, which Crescent City character would you most want to platonically hang out with? Thank you for throwing in the platonically, Anastasia.
So Anastasia asked this in the Discord when I was actively engaging in the conversation. And then people started answering, and then I just couldn't answer because she asked it as a fun question. I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to answer this on air. And so I can't talk about this in the Discord right now, which is a bummer. But I did say in the Discord, and I'll say again now, I think the funny thing to me about Crescent City is that I actually think that aside from Rune and Lydia, every single hang for me is platonic. Like very few love interests. Contrast with Throne of Glass, which that's a plug if you guys haven't read Throne of Glass. Contrast with Throne of Glass, I'd be hard pressed to find a male character in Throne of Glass that I'm trying to platonically hang out with. Anyways, if I'm picking Crescent City character to platonically hang out with, I guess maybe I'm saying them because they're a package. I feel like they're a package deal. Maybe Declan and Tristan. I just feel like they're like a good vibe and a good time. And I feel like they just welcome whoever. Like they welcomed Ethan and just generally are a very non-judgmental bunch. I was tied up between them and Juniper, honestly, because I just feel like they'd be warm and welcoming and just like a low judgment, low pressure hang without many spikes, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I had Rune, Declan, and Tristan playing beer pong at the house. I thought that sounded very fun. But since you have said it, I'm going to change my answer. It's kind of a sad answer now, but I think I would enjoy in a work atmosphere. I think it would have been very fun to work at the gallery with Bryce and Lihaba, RIP. We love her so much.
Yeah.
But I really like Lihaba as a character and I miss her. And I thought she was fun. I mean, I understand on the page that Bryce and Fury and Juniper are like a friend group, but weirdly enough, I feel like we don't get the dynamics of it as much as we get with the guys, with Rune and Declan and Flynn. Like it's like I feel like we get that relationship more than we get the girl equivalent of the relationship, which I think is kind of strange because that's not usually how Sarah writes. But
yeah, I totally agree. And I also just like honestly, in answering this question, I felt like if I'm choosing who I'm hanging out with, Declan and Tristan would be easier to assimilate into than Bryce and Fury. Like, no, they are amazing characters. They are amazing women, but it's hard to sell myself to them, if that makes sense.
If we're back in our freshman year dining room, right, in our long tables, you have to choose where you're sitting. You're in the lunchroom, dining hall. Sorry, not dining room. Yeah. I'm intimidated by Bryce and Fury, right? I'm not going to that table. I'm going to Rune and his friend group. But
yeah, maybe not Rune specifically. To be honest, he looks fucking scary. But the others,
I would approach Rune for non-platonic reasons, and
right? Non-platonic reasons. Yeah, platonic reasons. I said that up front.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right. So Lihaba and the boys.
Lihaba's for the Bravo girls. Like Lihaba is the Bravo girl of the street.
She totally is. And I'm not a Bravo girl, but I have a lot of friends who are Bravo girls. So I'm very happy to hang out with the Bravo girls. We're here for it.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we get into COSMs?
Let's do COSMs.
All right. COSMs, if this is your first time listening, this is corrections, omissions, social media shout outs. So this is when we kind of integrate what we hear from you guys into theories. We really love it. It's typically reacting to our prior episodes. So do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Oh, you go first. I just went first one, last one.
All right. I have only one. So this was about the clips or I can't remember exactly what the post was, but it was about us talking about the fact that Silene booby trapped the shit out of her carvings when they are supposed to be for her heir to come and claim their power and know her story and all of that. And we're like, that doesn't really make sense. Why is this so booby trapped when in theory she's supposed to be trying to guide someone? So we got a comment from Bree B35 on that post, and they wrote, I think they were for all of the various beasties crawling around those caves that like to eat first light. Thea's power would have been a feast for those things, so the booby traps would have kept them from gnawing on Thea's power like they apparently did to Vesperus's first light core. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That actually makes a ton of sense. We know there's a lot of creatures in there. We know that the Midgard worm specifically likes to gnaw on power. We know that Silene stored a third of Thea's star at the end of this, right? So if there are creatures who are going to be attracted to the harp chamber, to this starlight, it makes sense that she would have booby trapped it, not for her heirs, but for the creatures. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It makes me look at Silene with slightly more sympathetic of a lens, not a hugely more sympathetic lens, but I can see maybe where the thought process was there. So thank you, Breeby35, for that one. I thought that was good.
Yep. Yeah, that does make sense. But
it does make sense.
Feels better.
Feels less like fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, it's still like, I don't know, it still would hit people, but okay, it's fine.
Questions about this in general, because obviously Silene built the tunnels and made the carvings, right? But she also there is a different way. There is a different way to get into the harp chamber that is also like disguised and that maybe not everyone could get into. So like, why did she build
why are there
entrances
two entrances
here? Why are there two entrances?
And why do they both seem equally set up for somebody to walk through?
Yes.
Don't know.
I don't know. I'm guessing we're going to talk about that next episode. I don't know about this one, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good one. We got a fun comment from Di, and you comment a lot. So, hey, Di.
Hey, Di.
So Di commented, the Starlight one, this was on a meme carousel, the Starlight one reminded me that Sidra means of the stars in Latin, and it's a river. So Sidra is the river in Belarus, right? And the caves in Avalon have a river of starlight carved throughout them, presumably by Helena, which I think is really fun. The thing that I think is even more fun is when I went to go fact check this, because I do fact check our COSMs. I trust you, Di, but I gotta fact check the COSMs. Gotta fact check the COSMs. I looked up the name, like the word Sidra, and Ancestry.com was ranked high because I guess Sidra is a name. It literally means Starborn.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm not kidding. Ancestry.com, Sidra, origin Latin, meaning Starborn. So we have a river in Belarus called Starborn.
I don't know what to do with that information at this point in time, but the fact that she introduced the Sidra in book 2 of ACOTAR to have it pay off in book 3 of Crescent City. How many books later is that? Like 5?
But I'm just gonna, just for posterity, okay?
Yeah, I can't read that. No one's gonna be able to read that. We'll link it in the show notes.
We'll link it in, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'm linking Ancestry.com in our show notes, but Google Sidra Ancestry.com.
That's wild.
So crazy. Good one, Di, and fucking crazy that Sidra means Starborn and has just been under our noses the entire
just staring
time.
us in the face. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
And very interestingly, and we'll talk about this, but Sidra, the Sidra is in the Night Court, which I think is interesting. So we shall discuss.
We shall discuss. All right. With that, shall we deep dive?
We shall.
All right, Ronnie, we're going to start. We got a question from a listener, or maybe it was a Discord, and I thought it was a good question. Basically asking us to break down what Bryce's powers were, what she got from the star, what she got after her drop, what she got from the horn, what she got after she claimed all the other pieces of Thea's star. So our question, high level today, is what are Bryce's powers? That is usually our question we do to kind of like introduce you guys to the topic and get us going. However, I think today it's going to be a really interesting discussion, and I fear this question alone could be an hour-long conversation. So we shall see. But Ronnie, what are Bryce's powers?
Let's run through. So I did structure this in our traditional format, but I think it does break down basically into Starborn, drop related, porn related. So I think it works out pretty nicely. So Bryce's powers, and we can kind of like pause in between and discuss each of them. So she is Starborn, which means she has most of the stuff that we talked about in the Starborn episode, right? So she was originally born with a third of Thea's star, the third that was passed down to her through Helena. So this gives her starlight, which she has had her entire life, basically. So in House of Earth and Blood, chapter 87, when Bryce is about to make the drop and flashes back to when she saved Danica's life from an asp shifter, she reveals that she was the Starborn heir. This is right before she revealed that she was the Starborn heir. This is the passage. "Close your eyes, Danica," she said softly. Danica just stared at her. Only for this. Only for Danica would she do this, risk this. The gravel around Bryce began to shiver, began to float upward. Danica's eyes widened. Bryce's hair drifted as if underwater, in deep space. The asp shifter finished loading the bullets and pointed the gun at Danica's face. His colleague smirked from a step behind him. Bryce held Danica's stare, did not look away as she said again, "Danica, close your eyes." Trembling, Danica obeyed. Squeeze them shut. The asp shifter. It's a really annoying
It's hard to say.
phrase to say.
It's hard to say.
Like a snake shifter clicked off the gun's safety, not even glancing at Bryce and the debris that floated towards the sky. "Yeah, you'd better close your eyes, you." Bryce exploded. White, blinding light ruptured from her, unleashed from that secret place in her heart, right into the eyes of the asp shifter. He screamed, clawing at his face. Blazing bright as the sun, Bryce moved. Pain forgotten, she had his arm in her hands in a heartbeat, twisted it so he dropped the gun into her waiting palm. Another movement, he was sprawled on the asphalt. So she basically is able to blind him kind of on demand. And that is the earliest time that we intentionally see her wield that power. We know of at least two other times when it happens. One when she visits the Oracle and the Oracle is like blinded, like cannot look at her. And then two, when it's attempted for her to be stolen from Ember, and then she defends them.
But I think what's important is that she's like she's like 3 years old when that happens. Like she is a child the first time this happens. Yeah.
So she is able to shine, like literally shine and blind people as an emotional response, effectively. And we'll talk more about why her star glows when it glows, but the starlight lights up when she is walking towards a place she is looking for, or when she's facing her champions. The star flares at different times. So she has this light. She later claims an additional third of Thea's star that Silene stashed under the prison in Prithian. And this allows her to gain another star-related power, Starborn-related power, that Thea refers to as Starfire, which is basically a laser-like power that allows her to kind of burn and etch things. So in Crescent City 3, chapter 27, this is where we first see Bryce use the laser. Bryce shoved out a slice of her power, sharp and targeted as Silene had used to carve the stones, as Azriel had focused his own power on her star earlier. So she's comparing it to the Illyrian siphon-focused power, which is interesting. I especially find it interesting because I don't know that I can't remember a time when we've ever just seen this raw Illyrian killing power. I've only ever seen it focused through a siphon. Anyway, that's an aside. Light cut through stone and sizzled, a line literally drawn at Azriel's feet. Whatever had changed in her power with the addition of Selene's magic, fuck yeah, this would be useful. "I won't tell them about you," Bryce said coolly, even as part of her marveled at the laser she created out of pure magic. The other part of her cringed from it, from the power that was eerily similar to what Rigelus had used against her before she jumped through the gate in the Eternal Palace. And then later in Crescent City 3, chapter 60, that's when Adis tells her and us that Thea called it Starfire. I'm going to cut down the quote a bit. If you can find the last third, the part that Thea originally kept for herself, "I wonder how your light might appear then, what it might do." "You knew, Thea," Bryce said. "You tell me." "I believe you've already begun to see some glimpses of it," Adis said, "once you attained what Silene had hidden." Bryce considered. "The laser power?" Adis laughed. Thea called it Starfire, but yes. So as Bryce is picking up more of this star, she's picking up more of Thea's power. This third in particular allows her to pick up Starfire, which allows her to kind of etch things. As an aside, this is a total aside, so we can cut it if we don't think it's interesting. Helena carved the caves in Avalon. The Starfire that Bryce has, she only gets after she gets Selene's star. So I don't really know whether Helena's Starfire was attached to that as well, or whether Helena had Starfire just by having whatever she genetically inherited. I have no idea.
Well, yeah, I actually think this is a really interesting concept, and I do think we'll have to talk about this at some point. And I think we might have, I don't know the full answer to this yet, so I think we might have misspoke in previous episodes, but we will get to the bottom of it at some point. Silene and Helena both had their own full stars as well, right? I mean, presumably they both had their own full stars, and then they each got a third of their mother's power, right? We know that Silene still had starlight. We know that her son had starlight. And presumably, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but Rune has starlight from somewhere, and it's not Theostar because all pieces of Theostar are accounted for, right? So, like, there is still there are different stars here that we're dealing with if we think of each starborn person as a star. So Helena had her own star, Silene had her own star, Thea had her own star that she then split.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know how like meaningful or powerful either of their stars are.
Yeah, I would agree. We just don't know. It's not that they're not, it's that we just literally don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea. And like Rune, we see have starlight, but he is supposed to be descended from Helena, who kept Theostar and then procreated. And Silene did not keep Theostar, procreated, and we have not seen starlight from anybody except for Feyre.
Yeah. Well, so that's speculation, to be clear. That's speculation. But yes.
What do you mean that's speculation?
We don't know that we've seen starlight from Feyre.
Yeah. We've seen Feyre glow.
Yeah.
So we've either seen starlight from nobody or Feyre.
You know, I would say Selene's star is currently unaccounted for. I would say that canonically Selene's star is unaccounted for, and there's plenty of, we can speculate till the cows come home about who has it or has pieces of it. Yeah.
Okay, tangent. Anyways, back to Bryce. So those are a couple Starborn, star-related powers that she has. She does get the last third of Theostar, which does unlock other things that we will get to. But I want to jump to what she's able to do as a result of the drop for a second. So she has the ability to absorb power. And I do consider this a power of hers. And she does this many times throughout the series. But in particular, she does it when she makes her drop, right? She absorbs power. So this is in Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood, chapter 92, when Hunt is dying and Bryce realizes that she needs to make the drop to heal him and everybody else. She somehow knows in that moment that her making the drop will generate such an insane amount of first light that it will heal Hunt, it will heal everyone around her, it will heal literally buildings. So that's kind of crazy. So, Bryce making the drop. Bryce slammed her palm onto the bronze disc of the gate, and soul to soul with the friend whom she had not forgotten, the friend who had not forgotten her, even in death, Bryce made the drop. And so she then is very emotional, which is very nice, but I'm going to just save us like 7 pages of reading here and skip ahead to when we're in Declan's point of view, because Declan is watching the Illusion system. Which,
the Illusion system is very important here, guys. Pay attention to the Illusion system.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so Declan drew his eyes from the video feed and scanned the graph on one of his 3 computers. So the Illusion system literally allows you to see, like physically see where somebody is on their drop and their power levels. So the one charting Bryce's drop, courtesy of the Illusion system, she's approaching her power level. Barely a blip past 0 on the scale. Hypaxia peered over his shoulder to study the graph. She's not slowing, though. Declan squinted at the screen. She's gaining speed. He shook his head, but she's classified as a low level, near negligible if he felt like being a dick about it. Hypaxia said quietly, but the gate is not. Sabine demanded, what do you mean? Hypaxia whispered, I don't think it's a memorial plaque on the gate. The witch pointed to the sign mounted on the glowing quartz, the bronze stark against the incandescent stone. The power shall always belong to those who give their lives to the city. Bryce dropped further into power, past the normal, respectable levels. Queen Hypaxia said, the plaque is a blessing. Declan's breathing was uneven as he murmured, the power of the gates, the power given over by every soul who has ever touched it, every soul who has handed over a drop of their magic. He tried and failed to calculate just how many people, over how many centuries, had touched the gates in the city, had handed over a drop of their power like a coin tossed in a fountain, made a wish on that drop of yielded power. It's like literally they created a tide out of a wishing well.
Is it not so fucking funny? Can we dissect this for a second? Is it not so fucking funny that the Asterion Prythian created a tithe to basically get these kernels of power from the Fae, and the Fae hated it so much that they rebelled and overthrew the Daglan, which I think they should have, to be clear. And now the Asteri on Midgard basically make it a tourist attraction, and people are just willingly giving up their power. If that's not a societal commentary, I don't know what the fuck is. Well done, Sarah.
Yeah. They created a tithe that was
they created a voluntary tie. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. The whole commentary about Midgard and Lunathian is like they are so much more advanced. They have technology, They create this parasite. They figure out all of these ways to be more advanced and to progress things beyond what Prithian's able to do, what Avalon is able to do even. So I do think it's very intentional. Made a wish on that drop of yielded power. People of every house, every race, millions and millions of drops of power fueled this solo drop. Bryce passed level after level after level. The Autumn King's face went pale. Hypaxia said, this is where the gates come in, right? Look at the gates. The quartz gates across the city began to glow. Remember, Bryce slammed her hand on the gates, so she is connected to the gates at this time. The quartz gates across the city began to glow. Red, then orange, then gold, then white. First light erupted from them. Lines of it speared out in every direction. The lights flowed down the ley lines between the gates, connecting them along the main avenues. It formed this perfect six-pointed star. The lines of light began to spread, curving around the city walls, cutting off the demons now aiming for the lands beyond. Light met light, met light, met light, until the city was ringed with it, until every street was glowing, and Bryce was still making the drop. I'm going to skip a bit because this is going to be really long if I don't. Bryce began slowing at last, nearing the Autumn King's level. Declan swallowed. The city was awash with her light. Demons fled from it, racing back through the voids, opting to brave the glowing gates rather than be trapped in Midgard. Light shot up from the gates, 7 bolts becoming one in the heart of the city above the old square gate, a highway of power, of Bryce's will. So we've got an dome of light. Just to make sure everybody's visualizing this along with us, we have a dome of first light.
This is absolutely going to be the cover. You going like this.
A dome of first light above the city. The voids between Midgard and Hell began to shrink, as if the light itself was abhorrent, as if that pure, unrestrained first light could heal the world. And it did. Buildings shattered by brimstone slid back into place. Rubble gathered into walls and streets and fountains. Wounded people became whole again. Bryce slowed further. Declan ground his teeth. The voids within the gates became smaller and smaller. Demons rushed back to hell through the shrinking doorways. More and more of the city healed as the horn closed the portals, as Bryce sealed the portals, the horn's power flowing through her, amplified by the first light she was generating. So a lot's happening here, right? She's obviously making the drop. This is all during her descent, right? She is not ascended at this time. So she is marked as a low level prior to all of this.
Yeah, hold on. I think that's really important. I think we need to pause on that for a second because she is born with a third of Thea's star. We know that she is born with a third of Thea's star. She always had it, but she had tests done, as all Vanir do in Lunathion. She had tests done to measure her power level in the Illusion system, and it was near negligible, right? It was close to 0, even with a third of Thea's star in her. She has no measurable power until after the drop. So whatever the star is, whatever the power the star is giving her is outside of that measurement system. I think it's important that those are two different distinct things, in my opinion.
I think they're different things. I totally agree. I think that Bryce's power, as it's measured by the illusion system, is measuring the equivalent of a permanent power like runes, shadows, things like that, right? And I know this question is not about the illusion system, right? But it is measuring powers that are implicit to somebody that they permanently have and can call upon at will, like power that regenerates, like it does on Prithian, where Nesta's like, well, didn't your power just refill? That's what this illusion system is measuring.
Totally.
So Bryce is a low level, and Ember, when the Autumn King calls her and is like, what the fuck? She's like, this is light. This is not.
It's nothing. Right.
This is not power. So she is marked as this low level being before it's dropped. She then drops. She absorbs all of this power while she's dropping. And this is my perspective. This is I'm getting speculative here. But she absorbs all of this power while she's dropping. She amplifies this power through the gates. This power is used in a way, right? She's tunneling down. This power is healing a whole bunch of shit by being amplified through these gates. She is marked as a high level after her drop because this power that she's absorbing boosts her to this crazy high level, right? Outranking the Autumn King.
Mm-hmm.
But after the drop, after she comes back, we don't see that in practice, right? She still needs a charge. So this high level ranking that she has on an illusion system, refillable power, implicit power, she doesn't actually have that on an illusion ranking. She just has it while she's dropping because she's touching that gate.
Yeah.
In my
well,
opinion.
I think there's a couple really interesting things happening. It's exactly what you just said, right? It's runes, shadows. We've got Autumn King's fire. We have water power. We have all these elemental type gifts, and Bryce doesn't have those. She never has those. We're told she gets dropped to this crazy power level. And then we'll get into this later, but really the only powers we see come from that are her ability to teleport and her like super strength, right? She can do a plank for 5 minutes now, but there's no kind of like Fae-like gift, Fae-like elemental power that we ever see kind of emerge from that. And I think that's really kind of interesting and kind of an open question. Like why does and if we're comparing it to Prithian, right? Like obviously the like Helion and Reese and no. Thesson has healing. So Thesson does have something like that. But like there's not really those Fae gifts that we would typically associate with the Fae on Prithian, on Midgard. Sorry, if that made sense. I don't know if that made sense. Basically, I'm saying Bryce's power never manifests as a thing. It is not fire. It is not water. It is not rain. It is not wind. It is just power. Whatever that means.
Yeah. I'm not even really convinced that her power was retained. Like the power that she absorbed during the drop was retained. Like she charged up and then she charged down and then she keeps getting charged up again. But like these power rankings that other people are graded on, like you said, right? Einar has flames, Hunt has lightning, Rune has shadows. Like Bryce, after her drop before she goes and claims more of Thea's star, does not have any like really much extra. Like she's just got, in my opinion, the residual effects of becoming full Vanir, right? Like actually having made the drop.
And now
Vanir,
she can, now she can teleport. That is something we don't see her able to do before the drop. Maybe she could have, maybe she couldn't have. We don't know. But it seems like basically she can now access her Starborn gifts. And if you want to hear the full list of Starborn gifts, we said it in our Starborn episode. But it's basically winnowing, Daemati. That's pretty much it. Winnowing and Daemati. And she can access winnowing now, but not Daemati for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So she's marked as this high level being after the drop. We don't really see it in practice, but she clearly achieves a really high power level during the drop because she's touching these gates that have been serving as a voluntary tithe for years and years and years and years and years, and collecting first light from the citizens of Lunathian for a long time.
So do you think, I read this as kind of like, okay, during the drop, she basically sets her ceiling on the amount. Like this is her battery level at 100%, right? She has set her battery level all the way up here with where the Autumn King is. And now she can be charged up to that battery level. But like, that's kind of her ceiling. But are you just saying, no, it's all fake. None of it's real. She's just being charged up. That's what this is. It's a mega tithe. She can be charged up however far or low she wants to be.
Why would it be a ceiling? Like, what about this?
You're totally fucking right. Like, you're completely right. Yeah. Why would it be?
Yeah. And like, we haven't seen her with the antidote. So like, who the fuck knows what's going to happen then?
Very much. Very much. I agree.
Yeah. So to me, the drop for Bryce it's good to get her free of like the mortality desiccation situation that the Asteri subject people to until they made the drop. But I do think other than that, this was her demonstrating that she can absorb a fuck ton of power. That's what I think.
So this is her drop. It is really truly her drop, but it is also her first, maybe second, but maybe first charge up. Her first. Okay, I can absorb all this power. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And thank God, because then Hunt didn't die, and then a lot of other people also didn't die, and then the buildings were restored, and it was very good moment. Good moment. We liked it.
Good job, Asteri. You set it up well.
Yeah. Okay. So she can absorb power. That was the point of that one.
I think that was a good chat. I think that needed to be.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah, absolutely it did. I just do feel. I hope you guys didn't find that anticlimactic. I don't really think she got anything particularly special from the drop. I think we got a lot of things from the drop. We learned a lot from the drop. She did get her immortality, but like as we know, her immortality could have always existed. We just didn't get it because the Asteri infected the water with parasites.
Right.
So
yes, she got her Fae body. She got her Fae body, and she got access to power that she didn't have but would have had if not for the parasite.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Okay. She also has the power of the horn. The horn is in her back, right? So she can wield it. We know that she can wield the trove, right? But I do think that the power of the horn is worth calling out explicitly because she and the horn are one and the same, right? It's said multiple times. She is the horn because Danica made sure of that, which brilliant idea, Danica. Thank you. I'm sure there's a really good reason, but I'm still asking myself that question. Okay, so we see her kind of unconsciously wield the horn to close the gates during her drop, right? So that is kind of all that we just read, and is obviously pivotal to making sure that the demons of hell don't run rampant and, cause a bunch of shit that we don't want to happen. But then she more consciously later wields the horn in multiple situations when she opens portals to other worlds. And she always does have a charge when doing this, even though when she has all of Thea's stars, she theoretically should not need it. And she kind of says she should need it, but we do always see her use a charge. So the first time we see this is in Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood, chapter 78, fucking Micah. So Micah and Bryce are having their face off, and Micah emerges from the door to the tank stairwell. His power hit her a moment later. It flipped her, pinning her face down on the carpeted stairs, exposing her back to him. She writhed, the ebbing pain in her leg secondary to the tingling numbness creeping through her blood. I don't want to read the Searing's part. It makes me really upset. Okay, we're skipping ahead. And then Micah sent a blast of white-hot flame straight into her back, into the horn. She screamed, even as the fire didn't burn, but rather absorbed into the ink, raw power filling her, flame turning to ice and cracking through her blood like shifting glaciers. The air in the room seemed to suck in on itself, tighter and tighter and tighter. It blasted outward in a violent ripple. Bryce screamed, hoarfrost in her veins, sizzling into burning agony. Upstairs, glass shattered, then nothing. So we get that moment. Micah obviously blasts power into the horn. This is, we know now because we've read the rest of the series, how the horn is charged, right? Is power blasted straight into it. And in that moment, we don't really see anything, but then, several chapters later, after a whole bunch of shit transpires, chapter 83, we learn that this worked, right? So Micah had indeed wielded the horn successfully, and it had opened a portal right through the mouth of the heart gate, drawing upon the magic in its quartz walls. Bryce had taken one look at what sailed out of the void suspended in the heart gate and knew Micah had not opened a portal to unknown worlds as he intended. This one went straight to hell, which I've always thought was interesting, that he meant to open a portal somewhere else, but it opened a portal to hell. I liked, my little headcanon is she had synth in her, which was black salt, and so we just went to hell. That's what I like to think.
This is a really interesting moment. I do want to pause on it for a second, if that's okay. That's why I said this question might take an hour, because I was really thinking about this Micah hitting her with his power. And it was really, it hurt her, right? It hurt her when everyone else we see hitting her with their power, and it charges her up. Right. Yeah. So I think in her drop, she might have also unlocked the charge up power. Right. Because Micah's power hitting her here, it charged up the horn, but it did not charge up her. Like, she did not have access to more power. So I think in the drop, that's why I was kind of saying I feel like maybe this has set her ceiling a bit, or given her this ability. Now she can charge up within her Fae body. Also interesting. And I don't think we should dive into this today, but Micah's power, the way that Bryce describes being hit by Micah's power is very similar to the way Hunt describes feeling in hell, with his like body numbing over and like feeling the blood in his veins going cold. Like, it's very similar imagery. We should talk about it at some point, but not today.
Yeah. I mean, Hunt is said to have an archangel's power without being an archangel. So like we're
gonna have to talk about that.
This is a Hunt episode situation.
A Hunt episode topic. Yeah.
But back to what you were saying about Micah hurting Bryce, I very much did link it to, I have the note too. I wrote pre-drop mortal ? No. She is mortal and weak before the drop. So it very well could be what you just mentioned, and that she like did not have the ability to absorb power pre-drop, or she was just like so weakened by the parasite before the drop that she just didn't have access to her full power, and like in theory should have. I don't know. Cool. So then we get more Micah stuff. Micah hadn't just opened a portal to hell in the heart gate, he'd opened one in every gate. Every one of the 7 quartz arches was a doorway to hell. So thank you so much, Micah. That's perfect.
Super helpful, Micah. Thank you.
Super helpful. Really glad we vacuumed you up. And then later when she's wounded, we get possibly Bryce thinking that maybe the horn is helping her heal, right? So later when she's wounded, she tugged at her leg. To her surprise, the minor wounds were already healing far faster than she'd ever experienced. Maybe the horn in her back helped speed it along. I had an annotation here, which was Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the horn would be helping her heal here, to be honest.
I had this thought as we were talking. There's something else that I didn't even really factor in to this whole equation, but she did have the Crystallis venom in her leg for 2 years, right?
Mhm.
And like kind of the 2 years when we see Fae kind of actually fully coming into their power. And we know that Crystallis venom blocks power. So maybe it's not the horn, maybe it's that the venom is gone now and she actually is more powerful than she thought that she was, that she did have these gifts the whole time. I don't know, little loosey goosey, but that is another thing to factor in here.
Right. Yeah. My note was just like, can you just heal? Like you are half.
You
like,
are half Fae.
Yeah.
You are half Fae. Yeah. I don't know.
So I don't know, but we do have that note. So I did add it. Maybe the horn was helping her heal. I don't know. So she has the power of the horn. And we, of course, throughout the course of the series, see her wield the horn in conjunction with other people. We will talk more about it, but we get Hunt help her wield it. We get Azriel help her wield it. We have talked about that before. I just think it's interesting that Micah is this kind of third candidate that we had not necessarily dove into. So
Yeah.
now we have Hunt, Azriel, and Micah. I don't know what to make of this because I thought we were going to have Hell in common, and then we threw Micah into the mix. So, okay. So she has the power of the horn. Bryce I'm going to put these two together because they're world walking adjacent, right? And spoiler alert, we think that Bryce is a world walker, would be a world walker independent of this horn situation.
Can it? That's not even like Ada says it. Like it's like on the page.
Ada says it, but he says it in kind of a roundabout way. He doesn't say, Bryce, you could open portals to other worlds without anyone's assistance if you wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
She can also winnow, right? So she calls it teleporting. We call it winnowing because we started with ACOTAR, but she can winnow. So she first winnows all by herself in House of Sky and Breath, chapter 46, when she and Hunt are hooking up on the Death Charger, and basically accidentally charges her up when they're hooking up. And so they wind up in the airlock. And this kind of starts a cascading number of times when, they're basically every time they hook up after that, I feel like I'm holding my breath. Like, are they going to end up somewhere?
Where are they going to be?
Without their clothes on? Like, at one point they end up on the apartment roof. But the reason that I love this so much is because we know that Sarah hides important things in sex scenes. And so you read this and you're like she's just discovering this power when she and Hunt are hooking up. And then you realize, oh no, it's actually specifically Hunt's power that makes this work really, really well. I want to talk more about merging her power with Hunt specifically, but before I do, Hypaxia and Azriel also are able to charge her up to winnow, right? So Hypaxia does this when they're fighting off the Crystallos, right? Now Bryce shouted in Hypaxia world, shoving a shining palm to Bryce's chest. Warmth flowed into her, soft and gentle, and stars erupted in Bryce's mind. Supernovas, Ethan. It was as easy as taking a step. One breath, Bryce stood against the quay. The next, she was beside Ethan's body, behind the creatures who pivoted toward her, sensing that her scent had shifted away.
I think they are Deathstalkers, not Crystallis, but yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Because it's book 2.
So I think it's interesting that Hypaxia can also charge her up to winnow. Really anybody can, but it seems to just be that Hunt works especially well and Azriel works especially well.
It's very interesting that we'll talk about tangent, but I think it's interesting that Hypaxia charging her up makes her see supernovas. We haven't gotten that with Hunt or Azriel. Like that's really, really starry imagery.
Yeah. I also think it's just, to me, it's like literally a flashing sign that the fact that Hunt charges her up super well to winnow and that Hunt is like made to help her use the horn is like winnowing is mini world walking. Like it's so like once you see it, it's like, yeah, this is in my face. Like
say yes.
Winnowing and world walking.
But I do think we need to clarify, and I think this is obvious, but I don't think that Bryce can winnow because she has the horn in her back. I think she could have winnowed regardless because Cormac can do it, Reese can do it, Feyre can do it, Azriel can do something. We're not clear, but because other people can do it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, totally. I think it's more just the fact that like Hunt's power works so well for this. It's like, yeah, it works so well with the horn and it works so well to help you walk across space and time.
I agree.
The last thing I had, and I know this isn't necessarily a power, and we kind of just talked about it, but she has this ability to like share/merge her power with Hunt's specifically, right? So we see this a few times with varying levels of significance, right? So back to when they accidentally winnowed for the first time, when they're hooking up in the garden in the depth charger, her starlight goes into him, and then he has it, right? Which ends up being crucial because it's how he ends up using the mask to save her life, right? So in chapter 46 of Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath, we basically get, I'm paraphrasing here, but sex had made their magics merge. He didn't know how to describe it, the feeling of her magic wending through him, like he existed all at once and not at all, like he could craft whatever he wished from thin air and nothing would be denied to him. Did she live with this day after day? That pure sense of possibility. It had faded since they'd teleported, but he could still feel it there, in his chest, where her handprint had glowed. A slumbering little kernel of creation.
Made. Made.
Yeah. Yeah. So
He can make things.
We're getting a lot of things here, right? So kernel of creation, she can make things. He could craft whatever he wished from thin air and nothing would be denied to him. This to me is one describing limitless power. We don't really get this from Bryce, right? And I think what's interesting here is that we are told multiple times by Apollyon and Rigelus, see what your powers can do together.
Yeah.
And I think it's their powers together that are making him feel this way, not Bryce's powers alone, right? We get another interesting moment in chapter 27, right? This is earlier, before, again, during sex, because Sarah is who Sarah is, not sex. I think he's
sex
going down
position queen.
Yeah. In chapter 27, she was flaring with light inside and out like a living beacon. She could have sworn they fell through time and space, could have sworn they tumbled towards something, but she wanted to stay here with him in this body and this place. I think we're kind of supposed to be thinking that we're getting hints towards them winnowing, because this is before they teleported into the airlock. But this is such an interesting way of describing it, right? She could have sworn they fell through time and space, could have sworn they tumbled towards something. We're getting a lot of hints, right? That their magic together is more than just charging up Bryce so that they can winnow, right? Kernel of creation, craft whatever you wish from thin air, existed all at once and not at all. Like basically together, their powers are like godlike.
Their sex scene in Avalon, I think we're going to have a whole question unpacking it because I am dumbfounded by it. I have no idea what happened in that sex scene. It's fucking wild, and I totally agree with you. And I'm sorry that I don't have quotes to back it up because I wasn't planning to talk about it today. But it's very much like they are suddenly like floating above the island, like from like a God's eye point of view. Like it's really fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I'm really excited to dive into it. And I mean, I think this will be maybe our Hunt and Bryce episode. I don't know because but I'm really excited to dive into it. I think it's so interesting, and I don't think we've fully seen yet what these two can do together.
Yeah. And I do think it's them together. I don't think this is a Bryce power, and I don't think it's a Hunt power. I think it's a merged power, but I do think like one of their powers is they can merge powers with each other. So.
Yeah, they're both conduits. And we see Hunt be able to take First Light in as well, and we see Sophie be able to do it as well, which is really important. They can absorb power and then basically expel it as anything they want, right? So Hunt is able to take in First Light in the Bone Quarter, and then it becomes his lightning. But Sophie could just expel First Light. I mean, we'll talk about Sophie, but Sophie's a fucking crazy character. Yeah. I'm excited to dive into her. Yeah.
So that is, I know we're an hour and 13 minutes in. That is what I had for Bryce. I mean, there's like other really minor stuff. Actually, I didn't really get into terraforming. Sorry, we can get into terraforming. Do you want to do that?
I didn't even really talk about the terraforming because
neither did I.
Okay. Bryce can terraform the island after she claims the second third of Selene's star. I don't count that as a power necessarily because I do think she can only do it to the prison and to Avalon. I don't think she could do that anywhere.
I think it's her Dusk Court power. I think it's like her evening star.
Yes.
The power of the land.
The one thing I don't think we mentioned here is after she claims the last bit of Fae's star, and I do think this is important, she doesn't present more powers. Like there's nothing extra she can do except now she can unite the full and unlock the full power of Truth Teller and the Star Sword, which we've talked about a lot, but just want to fully round it out. That is what she got so far that we've seen from that last third of Fae's star. I would say based on what Adis said, that you've already begun to unlock some of the powers. And like, I wonder what you could do with all of her star. I do think it will be more there, but so far that's really all we've seen from her to be able to do it.
Yeah. I think Yeah, just the honorable mentions are terraforming, Star Sword and Truth Teller both sing to her and fly to her on demand, right? And she can wield the sword's true power. She is Thea's star. Like, she is Thea's full star and all of the things that come with Thea's full star. Things that we know and things that we don't know that come with that.
Yeah.
She does
right.
call herself the Evening Star, which we'll get into later. So
She does.
yeah.
All right. So to sum up, guys, because I think we went through a lot there. So let's just take a breather. She has a third of Thea's star. She always has a third of Thea's star. That is her first power that she is born with. That power exists outside of the illusion system, outside of the drop. She always has that. It is not measured there. Then she does her drop. She gets powered up, whether that's her ceiling or just she unlocks the ability to charge up. After she does the drop, she can both absorb power and teleport now. We never really see her have any true Daemati powers, which we've seen with other Starborn, but we'll see. She's taken the parasite, but for now, we think those are her powers. She has the horn in her back, which means she can open portals to other worlds, but so far we've seen her need a power-up to do that every time. And she can unlock the true power of Truth Teller and the Star Sword. I think that's pretty much, those are the big ones. I think those are the big ones. I hope we did a good job explaining that.
Cool.
There's a lot.
Okay.
I do
Abby.
have one more little fun thing that I just wanted to put out there. And I'm sure people have caught this. I'm certainly not the only one who caught this. But you know how each of our Crescent City books are divided into parts?
Mm-hmm.
The parts of House of Flame and Shadow, which is Crescent City 3. I know you guys don't know what the names are sometimes, are the drop, the search, and the ascent, which we know are the 3 parts of the drop. So I've kind of always read that as she's truly claiming her power in Crescent City 3. Like the each part aligns with her getting a third of Thea's star. So that I think is like kind of her true power. Everything else a little ancillary, but yeah, it's mostly the star. Yep. Okay, now we can go to the next question.
Okay, Abby. Who did Bryce get her Starborn power from?
Subtitle, the Ember question.
Subtitle, the Ember question.
All right. Also, real quick, I didn't say this at the top, and I realize we're almost an hour, 20 minutes into this, but I love every question on this outline. I think they're all going to be really fun. So stay with us, guys. I think it's going to be a good time. All right. So who did Bryce get her Starborn power from? I want to just start with, I think the most logical answer here is the Autumn King. And I just want to put that out there. He has 2 children. They both have Starborn power. Let's say that it is plausible that she got her power from the Starborn King, the Autumn King. But let's explore some other options here as well, because there's a couple reasons why perhaps that wouldn't be the case. But to start with, for the Autumn King. So Cormac does tell us that the Autumn King's bloodline once crossed with the Starborn bloodline. So this is in Crescent City 2, Chapter 4. We have, that light says otherwise, Cormac said with blatant confidence. I might be Rune's cousin directly through his mother's kin, but your father, King Einar, is Fae, and his line once crossed with ours long ago. He held up his hand and flame wreathed his fingers before waking out. So Cormac has both flame and shadow and some Starborn abilities. We know that the Starborn Fae typically came from a Valen, but Cormac is saying here that Einar's line, the Autumn King's line, crossed with a Valen, so he could have some Starborn power, the Starborn bloodline as well. So it is plausible. However, there are a couple things working against this theory. So the first one being that he himself has no starlight. We know that he has no starlight because he has to ask Rune, I almost said Reese, he has to ask Rune for like a kernel of it, like it's the tiniest drop of it in order to do his experiments with his prism. So the quote we have for that is, his father curled a finger toward him. I have need of your gift. Why? His Starborn abilities were little more than a sparkle of starlight in his palm. His father held up the prism. Direct a beam of your starlight through this. Not waiting for an answer, his father again put an eye to the metal viewing contraption atop the prism. It ordinarily took Rune a good amount of concentration to summon his starlight, and it usually left him with a headache for hours afterward, but he was intrigued enough to try. So Einar only needs like a kernel of starlight, and he can't summon it himself, right? So that is kind of hey, is this really his power? It kind of seems suspicious that he doesn't have any of it at all. Yeah. I just want to say, like, this is more let's put this in the wackadoodle category, but I do want to talk about it. And I think you want to talk about it too. All right. So, second piece of evidence here is Rune's mother, right? And the Autumn King even implies that Rune actually got his Starborn gifts because of his mother. So, the quote we have is, the Autumn King had decided after a few centuries of ruling that he wanted an heir. As the daughter of a prominent noble house that had defected from a Valen's court, she'd done her duty gladly, grateful the eternal privilege it offered. He might never understand his mother, yet it didn't stop his fierce pride that he took after her bloodline, that his shadow walking set him apart from the asshole in front of him, a constant welcome reminder that he didn't have to turn into a domineering prick, even if most of his mother's kin in Avallen were little better. Perhaps you should call her, Rune said. Give her the warning yourself. She'd appreciate your concern. I'm otherwise engaged. You may inform her yourself, and you will refrain from telling me how to manage my relationship with your mother. You don't have a relationship. You bred her like a mare and sent her out to pasture. And then Einar says, you benefited quite well from that breeding, Starborn, right? So he's basically saying, because I bred your mother, gross, icky, you are Starborn, right? In my mind, he's saying that wasn't me, that was her. You benefited quite well from this, Starborn, right? Yeah. So, and this is in the same scene where he's taking Rune's light because he doesn't have any. So like, this to me is a little bit like, that's interesting. If it came from Rune's mother, then why does Bryce have it too? What does this say about Ember? Let's talk a little bit more about Lauren, because I think there's some interesting things here. So we know this from the bonus chapter on Rune. When Rune goes to visit his mother, we get Lauren's mother had been a Donnell. It was through those blood ties that Rune had been invited to Avallen all those years ago. Blood ties were all that truly mattered among the Fae. So she's a Donnell. We know that Cormac and Morven are also both Donnells. So she is literally directly descended. I guess Peleus's last name was Donnell. I don't know. Like, it's unless there's been a coup, unless there's been some kind of coup on Avallen that we don't know about. It seems like because the current king of Avallen is a Donnell, that this is the direct line from Helena and Peleus, right?
Yeah.
We also know that Rune is said to look like one of the original Starborn princes, and he looks like his mother. The quote we have for that is, Rune, a step behind his father, was a shock to the senses. In his princely raiment, the star sword at his side, he could have very well been one of the first Starborn with that coloring of his. Might have been one of the first through the Northern Rift so long ago. And that is when Hunt is seeing Rune at the summit at the end of Crescent City 1. That's chapter 73. So much stronger ties to the Starborn through his mother than his father. So if Rune got his Starborn gift from his mother, where did Bryce get her Starborn gift from? Did she also get it from her mother, is the question.
I think the only thing I would add is it doesn't contradict with anything that you just said. I just do think that it's possible after this many generations that the Autumn King did have somewhere in his line Starborn ancestry that got diluted badly enough, and Rune still got what he has of Starborn gifts from his mother's line, right? Like, we know that the Starborn interbred, like, gross, but like that definitely did happen. So like the Autumn King might have known, like, hey, I do have Starborn in my line, but it is so fucking weak that I need to go make sure, like,
amplify
find somebody else who does also have more Starborn ideally in their line, and hope that it results in some starlight. Like, gross, but totally possible. Still doesn't
Totally think
explain
it's
how
possible.
Bryce ended up with an entire third of a star, but yeah, I think that could like at least just ease the explanation of like, is the Autumn King really Starborn lineage-less completely? Like, he doesn't have to be, in my opinion, for Rune to have gotten that gift from Lauren.
I agree. I'm prefacing this with, I think it is certainly possible that the Starborn gift came from the Autumn King. I actually think it's likely. I think that's probably what's going on here. It makes the most sense. I don't know that we're going to get the crazy theory that we're about to talk through, but a lot of people have speculated this, so let's chat about it. All right. So we're going to talk about Ember. Guess who has the same coloring as Rune, guys? It's Ember fucking Quinlan. All right. So the quotes we have are, Ember Quinlan had been a knockout. No wonder that Fae asshole had pursued her to the point where she'd bailed. Long black hair framed a face that could have been on a billboard, freckled skin, full lips, and high cheekbones that made the depthless eyes above them striking. So she's got the black hair. I mean, she doesn't have the sapphire eyes, but that might be a different thing entirely. But she's got the black hair. She's got the coloring. We get, again, in Crescent City 1, a stunning woman in her mid-40s appeared on the screen, her sheet of black hair still untouched by gray, her freckled face just beginning to show the signs of a mortal lifespan. So Sarah's really hammering home that black hair. She's also got some interesting, I said these were could be something, could be nothing qualities to her. So the first thing we learn about Ember is that her sight is extremely good, okay? So when Hunt and Bryce are FaceTiming Ember and Randall in book 1, we get Ember seem to peer over their shoulders. They're literally FaceTiming, right? They're on a laptop screen. They're not in the same room. Ember seemed to peer over their shoulders. When was the last time you cleaned Bryce Adelaide Quinlan? Bryce stiffened 20 minutes ago. I can see the dust on that coffee table. You cannot. Very good eyesight. Or she's just being a mother, right? Could be something, could be nothing. But in theory, very good eyesight here. Hunt thinks that she'll know if he's lying. So he had a feeling that Ember Quinlan could sniff out lies like a bloodhound. So Hunt smudged the truth. We know the Starborn lineage has Daemati powers, right? I'm not saying she has Daemati powers, but maybe he's picking up on something there. Also, I think it's interesting that she used the bloodhound there. Like that's fun. We also know she has a commanding presence, right? So Ember possessed a grounded sort of presence that commanded attention. She said, "You must be Athy." That is also Crescent City 1. Chapter 56, we have a concept of High Lord dominance in this world, right? So commanding presence because she's a strong, beautiful, powerful mother, or because she's got some High Lord dominance. I mean, it's almost certainly the mother thing. Like, I'm going to be clear. I think this is wackadoodle. It's almost certainly the mother thing, but it's fun. The other piece we have of this is the Chthona priestesses, right? So we know that she is a dedicated worshiper of Chthona, and the priestesses atChthona's temple deemed her to be a holy pregnant vessel. So the quote we have for that is, "She wound up at a temple to Chthona in Corinth, and she knew the priestesses there would take her in, shield her, since she was a holy pregnant vessel," or whatever. Bryce snorted. "She gave birth to me there, and I spent the first 3 years of my life cloistered behind something." I forgot to finish this quote. "She gave birth to me there." Let's finish the quote there. And then after that, "The House of Earth and Blood literally deemed my mother a vessel for Chthona, and Randall a vessel for Solus, and blah, 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 religious crap, but it basically amounted to an official order of protection that my father didn't dare fuck with," right? So she is somehow getting the House of Earth and Blood to give her a protection because she is a holy pregnant vessel and tied to Chthona. Very interesting. I don't really know what's going on there, but I think that's very impressive for a human to do. She's got that inner fire that we love to talk about, right? So she says, this is Crescent City 2, Chapter 1. "What's so bad about Normal? Her mother's face blazed with an inner fire that never banked, never ever died out. I think Hunt would like living here," right? So we've talked about inner fires somehow, sometimes signify, we had it a lot with Nesta, right? Signify that is actually going to manifest into some kind of other power, and is a hint to more going on there.
Yeah.
She seems to be a bit more attuned to power than Randall. So in the Ember and Randall bonus chapter in Prythian, and there's a lot of interesting things in here, so I'm going to talk through a couple of them. When Rhys is approaching the House of Wind, we get, "Even Ember's mortal blood knew it wasn't a storm. It was something far, far worse." And then she says, "Lower your gun," Ember whispered to Randall. "What?" Randall didn't lower the rifle as he slid his gaze to her. "Lower your fucking gun," Ember breathed as the darkness raged closer, blotting out the city lights, the stars, the moon. So Ember is more attuned to Rhys, like attuned to this power. She knows that something, I don't want to say something bad because it's Rhys, but in theory, something bad is coming. And she's saying, "Hey, Randall, put your fucking gun down."
Yeah.
We also have this line. This is again in the bonus chapter. "What is this place anyway, and why are all of you so attractive?" Nesta smirked, looping her arm through Ember's before she said, warmth finally entering her tone, "Welcome to the Night Court, Ember. You'll fit right in here." I think it's interesting that Nesta said you'll fit right in here, because famously, regardless of attractiveness level, people don't always fit right in at the Night Court, right? Like Elaine is having trouble fitting in at the Night Court. We do think she's fit in now. We do think she's gotten there eventually, but Nesta is basically saying, you're going to fit in. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And Bryce also says that her parents, when she scoops them up from Prythian, are happy and at home with the Fae. So we don't have a quote for that, but Bryce says that her parents are happy and at home with the Fae when she scoops her up from Prythian. Could just be a nod to Cassian and Nesta's hospitality, right? But they are very comfortable. They're very comfortable in Prythian. Nesta saying you'll fit right at home, etc. We do have something that I think is really interesting and has been my little headcanon for a little while, but I do want to talk about here because I think it works with this question. It is implied that the Autumn King and Ember might be mates. And the quotes we have for that in book 1, when Bryce is defending her decision to go out with Reed, remember Reed, the asshole, even though he's boring, she says, yeah, right. "At least he's got a good job," Bryce said to Danica, who crossed her slender arms that had tremendous, ferocious strength, and gave her a look that said, "Yeah, one that Reed's daddy gave him." Bryce added, "At least he's not some psychotic alpha hole who will demand a 3-day sex marathon and then call me his mate, lock me in his house, and never let me out again." right? We have a couple other instances of this. This is referenced a couple other times. So one of them, this is in Crescent City 1, Chapter 3, like when what her Fae father had done to 19-year-old Ember Quinlan when he pursued her, seduced her, he tried to keep her, and gone so far into possessive territory that the moment Ember had realized she was carrying his child, carrying Bryce, she ran before he could scent it and lock her up in his villa in Phiro until she grew too old to interest him. Actually, I don't know why I put that quote in there. We also have
Well, no, I think it's one of the only things that makes it plausible that the first quote was about Ember.
Yes, sorry. That is what I was going for. You're correct. The first quote we don't know is about Ember. The second quote, we get an explanation that this was probably about Ember.
Yeah.
And then we also get the Autumn King saying, I would have made her my queen. Fucking crazy thing for the Autumn King to say, right? I had the paperwork ready. She blinked. How surprisingly unreleased of you. Her mother had never suggested, never hinted at it. She would have hated being queen. She would have said no. She loved me enough to have said yes. Absolute certainty laced his words. You think that somehow erases what you did? No, nothing shall ever erase what I did. So that is Crescent City 1, Chapter 68. So we have the implications that the Autumn King thinks that Ember was his mate, right? There's also something really interesting that Sarah has done here. I don't know if she did it intentionally or not. Ember and the Autumn King share a scent, right? So the Autumn King scent is ashes and nutmeg, and Ember scent is honeysuckles and nutmeg. We know that one of the signs of being mates is that your scents change, your scents merge. So like, I don't know. I think it's really interesting that she made both of their scents nutmeg. I think that's a really interesting detail.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm bringing this up, the mate thing, it seems kind of irrelevant. However, when I kind of racked my brain about it, I do not believe in the Maasverse we have ever had a mated pair where one of the people in the mated pair is truly fully human, right? Like they always become Fae or they are part, I'm just going to say part witch. That's not really a Throne of Glass spoiler, but part witch, part something.
Very small part.
Very small part, but I don't think there has ever been a mated pair with 100% human blood being in one of the people. I know that Rhys and Feyre, I know that Rhys felt the mating bond before she was Fae, but he said it snapped into place when she became Fae. Similar with Cassian and Nesta. We know with Elaine and Lucian, it's only once she becomes Fae.
I want to say there was like some historical figure who like bound their life to their human partner, but I can't remember who it was. So,
are you thinking?
No, maybe.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. It doesn't matter. It's not important. Clearly, if I don't remember it, it's not important enough to be.
Right. Okay. So current pairs.
Yeah.
All of which is to say, it's a smattering of loose pebbles here. We'll call it pebbles, that there might be something going on with Ember. But I think it's interesting to talk about. I also want to talk about the Bone Carver line that a lot of people like to talk about with Ember. But do you want to bring in anything first?
I mean, I think that line is interesting to talk about. I think like in conjunction with the fact that it is said specifically that Bryce and Rune have different starlights, right? So their starlights are different. I know we'll talk about that more in our Rune episode, but I think in this discussion specifically, it is interesting to think about them having different starlights if you think about it in the context of them having one common supposed starborn parent, right? So if Rune gets his starlight from his mother, then okay, maybe it's explained and maybe Bryce just gets her starlight from the Autumn King and then everything is answered. But if Rune doesn't, and even if Rune does get his starlight from Lauren, then that implies that maybe the Autumn King doesn't have anything strong enough to pass on. And then I think that does make the Ember question more interesting. Like, how do Bryce and Rune have truly different starlights that Adis notices, right? He's like, you do not have the same starlight. So with that specifically, because I'm taking that to mean two different starlights from two different sources, I think then I'm wondering who the fuck this warrior is and whether the human line is Ember. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Bone Carver line. You guys have heard us read it. We've talked about it, but we haven't talked about it in a long time. So here's a little refresher. This is when Feyre and Rhys are going to visit the Bone Carver in the prison in Akamaf, I believe. So the Carver traced 3 overlapping interlocked circles in the dirt. You have met my sister, my twin, the Weaver, as you now call her. I knew her as Striga. She and our older brother, Cochet, how they delighted in this world when we fell into it, how those ancient Fae feared and worshipped them. Had I been braver, I might have bided my time, waited for their power to fade, for that long ago Fae warrior to trick Striga into diminishing her power and becoming confined to the middle. Cochet, too, confined and bound by his little lake on the continent. All before Prythian, before the land was carved up and any High Lord was crowned. Clever, that Fae warrior. Her bloodline is long gone now, though a trace still runs through some human line. He smiled, perhaps a bit sadly. No one remembers her name, but I do. She would have been my salvation had I not made my choice long before she walked this earth. So there's a lot to unpack here. So we know there was a long ago Fae warrior who hunted down Cochet, who hunted down Striga, who trapped them to their respective confinements to Striga's cottage and to Cochet's lake. We know that Silene said that she hunted down a creature of blood and nightmares using the dagger and trapped that creature in the prison. We do not have she does not say anything about trapping a creature on a lake. She does not say anything about trapping a creature in a cottage. And the timeline doesn't totally work because we know that when she got back to Prythian, the courts had been formed, right? So I want it to be Silene. I think it's a really interesting idea if the Bone Carver's talking with Silene. It like 80% works with Silene. The other thing that doesn't work, I think, with it being Silene, is he says her bloodline is long gone now, though a trace still runs through some human line. So that's why a lot of people think this is referencing Ember, which I love. I totally love that idea. But Selene's bloodline is not long gone, right? We know that we highly suspect that Reese is part of Selene's bloodline because he can open the prison gates, right? So it doesn't work with that piece, but
She looks exactly like Reese's sister.
She looks exactly like Reese's sister. Yeah.
Literally spoon-fed Reese is Selene's descendant.
I agree with you. We're spoon-fed it, but it has not been written out in canon.
And it's not been written
I
out.
agree.
Yeah. I would love that would be a plot twist that if Sarah chose to give it to us, I would read it, but I feel like we are led to water that is Selene's blood runs in Fae lines currently.
Certainly in Reese's bloodline, right? And I mean, the Ember thing is interesting, but it would again be Helena's descendant, not Selene's, right? So it's the bloodline thing is interesting, but at the very least, we have many Fae descendants of Thea, right? We have at least Rune, we have at least Bryce, we have all of Avalon, seemingly. Yeah, we have Reese and now Nyx, right? So I like this idea. I could see Sarah being like, "Oh, this is a little nugget I left. I could bring it forward," right? But it wouldn't quite fully work. Like it doesn't quite fully work with what she's written. But I do really like the idea.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
I didn't really have anything additional. It all kind of, for me, hinges on just the differences between, Rune and Bryce. And I think it's hard to prove. I think the most likely explanation is they get it from the Autumn King, but we're given enough to make us question it, in my opinion.
I would agree.
All of the things that make sense. We don't need to drag out this question any further quite some time into this episode.
Ronnie, why does Bryce's star glow when it glows?
Okay. So we are told Bryce's star glows toward her homeworld, the world of the Starborn people, which we know to be the world on which Prythian sits. It guides her to Thea's star, and it also seems to indicate who her champions are. So we learn this from my personal least favorite Asteri, Rigelus, House of Sky and Breath, chapter 76, that's Crescent City 2. He says, "The star on your chest, do you know what it is?" "Let's assume I know nothing," Bryce said grimly. Rigelus inclined his head. "It's a beacon to the world from which the Fae originally came. It sometimes glows when nearest to the Fae who have undiluted bloodlines from that world. Prince Cormac, for example. It glowed for Hunt," Bryce shot back. "It also glows for those who you choose as your loyal champions, knights." "So what?" Bryce demanded. "So that star will lead us back to that world. Through you. They overthrew our brethren who once ruled there. We have not forgotten. Our initial attempt at revenge was foiled by your ancestor who also bore that star on her chest. The Fae have still not atoned for the deaths of our brothers and sisters. Their homeworld was rich in magic. I crave more of it." So many interesting things in that quote. We're just going to focus on the fact that we are told the star is going to lead them back to the Starborn homeworld where Prythian is. And that is our explanation, our canonical explanation for the most part of why Bryce's star kind of glows. But we first see Bryce's star glow really on demand when she's decided to reveal that she's Starborn to save everyone. We've already been over the time when she's decided to save Danica. That was in a time of distress. So she is, and we see her multiple times, able to use the light as a weapon. So that's not really that's not unintentional glowing. Like she is able to use it as like a defense mechanism, right? She uses it against the Asp Shifter. She uses it against the Reapers. She uses it in several situations to blind demons. because it is technically a shield in that way. We're going to focus mostly on, at least I'm going to focus mostly on the times when she's like, oh, fuck, why is my star glowing?
Yeah.
Or my star's glowing. I should follow it. That's what I'm focused on in this question. So we see it glow at various moments throughout the series for various reasons, mostly guiding her to the right place. So when they are on Prythian, this is probably the most important part and notable part, right? The star in Bryce's chest guides her to Thea's star under the prison and Selene's story, right? So while she is in Prythian, in the hewn city, kind of reflecting on how the fuck she got there, she sorted through all that Rigelus had told her in those last moments, that the star on her chest somehow acted as a beacon to the original world of the Starborn people. And then it lights up when she's headed the right way, right? So when she kind of sneaks under her cell into the tunnels under the hewn city and tries to follow the tunnels to get out was kind of her goal. This is in chapter 5. Bryce turned toward one of the tunnels, trying to better see what lay beyond. The star in her chest dimmed, like her magic was rapidly fading. She whirled toward the other tunnel, trying to see what she could before the magic vanished. The star flared brightly again. Huh, she murmured. Bryce turned back the other way. The star faded. To the opposite side, it brightened. So this is her realizing that she basically has like a compass on her chest, right? Where she thought that she was running out of magic. She turned the other way. She's like, oh, wait, the star clearly wants me to go this way. And she continues to follow that star all the way to the harp chamber, effectively pissing off Nesta in the process by jumping into the river and making them cold. Yeah, and making them cold, which is kind of hilarious because Nesta was like, we didn't need to get wet. Azriel has been a shadow.
No, that was Nesta's fault, 100%.
It was 100% Nesta's fault. Also, we'll talk about this. Maybe we'll never talk about it. I don't even know. But the fact that Azriel chose not to winnow that entire time, I know he doesn't really winnow. So, like, is there a reason that he didn't do that?
What was that?
I don't know, pissed me off. So Rigelus told her that the star reacted to people that she has chosen as her champions and then people with Starborn blood, right? So it reacts to Hunt frequently, who she loves. So that makes sense. And she calls that out. She's like, it reacts to Hunt. And Rigelus is like, relax, you've chosen him as your knight, basically. And it reacts often when they are hooking up. It does react to Cormac before she wants him to exist, basically. So yeah. This is kind of an indicator that it is, in fact, reacting to Starborn blood. And it is an indicator that Cormac is, in fact, of the Starborn line. Unless the star is really fucking smart and knows that he's acting in her best interests. That could also be an explanation, but it glows when Cormac shows up. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I read it more as a danger thing. Like she felt like she was in danger when Cormac was around, because I do think I believe once she realizes she can trust him, it stops glowing in his presence. But
interesting. Even though it glows at Hunt all the fucking time.
It is interesting, right? Well, I think like, keep going. We'll get to me later.
So it reacts to Cormac twice before she like knows that he's good, right? So when he shows up to Rune's house, this is from Rune's point of view, so he's like incredibly under the influence. And he says it wasn't just the glow stick coiled around Bryce's arm that was shining. The star-shaped scar beneath her t-shirt blazed with iridescent light. And this is as Cormac is stepping out of his portal to hell shadows that are in front of the door. And then it glows again when he shows up to visit her in the archives, even before she knows that it's him. So this is in Crescent City 2, Chapter 9. A glow flared at her chest from the scar. Bryce, Hunt's voice sharpened. Bryce frowned down at the glowing star between her breasts, visible in her low-cut dress. Not again. Its glowing had been rare until now, but after last night, she looked up, and then Cormac was there. And she was like, get the fuck out, basically. So it reacts to Cormac. Rigelus tells us that it reacts to, what was his exact wording? Sorry.
The nearest Fae, or nearest the Fae who have undiluted bloodlines from that world.
Yeah. It sometimes glows when nearest the Fae who have undiluted bloodlines from that world. Prince Cormac, for example. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's interesting to think about whether it's like actually sensing danger. I don't know. Cormac's clearly not dangerous and doesn't intend any danger, but maybe she's anticipating it. I don't know.
Yeah, I read it as, well, because it doesn't fucking glow for Morven. Right? Like she meets Morven and it doesn't start glowing. And presumably he has the equally undiluted Fae bloodline, right? So I read it as more, it is reacting to Bryce's heightened emotions, whether those be arousal, love, or fear. Because at first she feels fear for Cormac, but then by the time she meets Morven, she's like, no, fuck this guy. I don't give two fucks. I'm super special, powerful, magical, Starborn princess, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. It does react to and like helps her with the beasts, the Dagwin beasts, the Asteri beasts in the pit, right? So the creatures settled. These are the creatures that typically the people of the Hewn City are feeding prisoners to. But the creatures settled as if her emotions were theirs. Some laid their heads down, and then we get kind of like the narration of the star internally to Bryce. They're your champions too, the star seemed to say to her. We don't necessarily get too much like glowing in that moment, but the star is talking to her and saying, hey,
Yeah.
everything's fine. What is the common thread here? In Prithian, she is led to, the star seems to lead her to power, to First Light, to Thea's star, to Silene, so to her ancestors, her home, but also like to the rest of her star. So I don't know necessarily that it's the home world so much as it's like we're trying to reunite with the rest of our power. This is speculation, right? We are told this is a beacon to the home world, but to me, it would make a lot of sense, right? If the star's primary purpose was like, hey, I'm trying to reunite my power, like calls to life, basically. And then it recognizes other Starborn. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It glows in Avalon too. Like it does the same thing in the caves in Avalon. So yeah, it's leading her to the other pieces of her star.
Yeah. And then in Hunt, she's led to love. Like I do think that's mostly emotional reactions. It would be interesting if it were reacting to hell power in some way, but I don't think we really see that as a common theme or thread.
Yeah.
Unless you liken anything related to Cormac to hell, but I don't really think that that's strong enough of a connection there.
Yeah.
So, not a very long answer, but that's what I've got. What do you have?
I mean, it's mostly she's either in love or she's having sex or she's in some kind of danger. I don't really think it's related.
Or she's going to a star.
To power, or she's going to a star. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be more emotional than power. I think there's one interesting thing here. I don't have an answer for it, but I do think we should talk about this quote. And this is when Bryce is in the Bone Quarter talking to the Underking.
Mm-hmm.
The quote is from the Underking. Life is a beautiful ring of growth and decay, the Underking said, the words echoing through the sleeping city around them. No part left to waste. What we receive upon birth, we give back in death. What is granted to you mortals in the eternal lands is merely another step in the cycle, a waypoint along your journey toward the void. Hunt growled, let me guess, you hail from hell too? I hail from a place between the stars, a place that has no name and never shall. But I know of the void that the princes of hell worship. It birthed me too. The star in the center of Bryce's chest flared. So the void, the mention of the void and her star flares.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe hell is a candidate.
Maybe hell, but I don't know that I would call the void hell. Like I think the void is its own thing.
I agree that it's its own thing, but the only person that we've met with void power is Apollyon.
Yeah.
And the Underking is very hellish.
She's from the void, certainly. But yeah, other than that, everything else pretty much fit into this she feels danger or she is very happy pattern. So I don't know. I mean, I think the void will play a major part, and I think the void is a part of this that hasn't been uncovered yet. So I think that will play in somehow, but for now, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We needed more time with the Underking.
I know.
Going back the Underking.
Well, Hypaxia is a necromancer, so
I don't know that we literally need to bring back the Underking, but I appreciate that she could make it happen.
Yeah, I don't need more time with the Underking, but I do need to know more about the void. I'm going to need that.
Yeah, I need that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Apollyon, sit down. Okay. Why do Hunt and Azriel specifically charge up Bryce so well?
All right. So, Hunt, we kind of have an explanation for. So, I'm going to majority focus on Azriel this question. We're also going to do a whole Hunt and Bryce episode, but we should talk about Hunt as context for Azriel because I think there's some interesting things going on here. So, as a refresher, we know that Hunt was specifically bred for this exact purpose, to charge up Bryce. So we first get hints of this in Crescent City 2 when Apollyon visits Hunt in his dreams. And I think there's a really interesting part of this quote, so I want to read it in full. But Apollyon said, "You're wasting the gifts that were given to you." Hunt drawled, "I think I've put them to good use. You don't know a fraction of what you might do. You and the Starborn girl, both of you would benefit from training. Your powers are more similar than you realize. Conduits, both of you. You have no idea how valuable you and the others like you are. not were, are present tense. So the first time I read this, I thought this was about the Thunderbirds, but the Thunderbirds are gone.
No, yeah.
He's saying are present tense, right? So are there others like Hunt? We'll get into that later. And by others like Hunt, I would mean here someone who was bred to charge up Bryce.
Which makes perfect sense based on the way that they described their experiments, right? They were basically like, we were always rolling a set of experiments to make sure that somebody was present to be available to charge up Bryce at any given time. Even if you got killed off, even if they all got killed off, like we needed to make sure that we had options here. So
Yeah.
I totally think that's plausible.
It totally makes sense. So let's go into a bit more about why the Princes of Hell made Hunt, because I think it's important. I think their plan is important for how we get to Azriel, right? So
yeah,
the Princes of Hell, what Adis tells us, what the Princes of Hell tell us, is that they and Helena had realized, one, that Thea had split her star 3 ways before she died, and that one part of that star was now in Prithian, right? So the quote we get for that, Adis nodded gravely. Thea didn't want them being the Asteri, to be able to access the full strength of the star in her bloodline, even through her corpse. So she split it in 3, putting only enough into the star sword for her to face Peleus, long enough for her to buy her daughters time to run. She gave her magic to her daughters, thinking they would both escape to their homeworld and be beyond the reach of the Asteri forever. And we know that the Princes of Hell know that Silene then went to Prithian, right? So they know one of the pieces of the star is on Prithian. Here's the second thing they know. The only way to overthrow the Asteri was to unite the knife and the sword, was to unite Truth Teller and the Star Sword. So the quote we have for that, or at least that Helena believed that, right? The quote we have for that is, Adis crossed his legs. Helena planted that prophecy, seeded it in Fae lore. She knew that despite her mother's fears, the sword and the knife are needed to destroy the Asteri. She knew that if a scion came along who could claim all 3 pieces of magic, they'd need the sword and the knife to make that power count. Thea's power, when whole, is the only thing that can unite and activate the true power of those blades and stop the Asteri's tyranny. So now they have 2 problems, as far as I can tell, right? They need someone from Thea's line to both retrieve Thea's star and retrieve Truth Teller from Prithian, and they believe the horn to be broken, right? They do not think the horn is in play anymore. So they need someone who can world walk both to Prithian and home from Prithian. And they know that Thea's star is broken, so they know that whoever is going to do it needs a charge up on both sides. They're going to need a charge up in Midgard to get to Prithian, and then they're going to need a charge up in Prithian to get back home, right? That's my thinking. That's my thinking right now. And they know, this is the quote we were talking about at the top of the episode, or Adis says that Thea and her line are world walkers, right? So Thea and her line can do this with or without the horn. The quote we have for that, certain people with certain gifts can access the power of thin places on any world. World walkers, Adis gestured gracefully to Bryce. You are one of them. I don't think that's roundabout at all. I think he's saying straight up, you are a world walker, right?
Yeah.
So were Helena and Thea. Their natural abilities lent themselves to moving through the mist. But there was one thing Thea and Helena did not anticipate, that you would wear the horn reborn in your body, another way to open doors between worlds, right? So
yeah.
Adis is saying, put the horn aside. The horn was not in play in our plans. We didn't know you were going to have the horn. That is something else we did not anticipate having, right?
Yeah.
We knew a world walker was going to come along.
Yeah.
Helena knew that you needed the knife and the sword in order to overthrow the Asteri. And we made plans on plans on plans to make sure that you would be able to get that knife, to get that sword, or if not be able to, at least have a shot at getting that knife, getting that sword, opening the Northern Rift, letting us in. Right. And then I wrote in my notes, Bryce finally asked the right question. Right. So the question is, what if I never got the knife back? What if I never came to Avalon? What if I never got the chance or refused to come here or whatever? Apollyon and Thanatos shifted in their seats, either bored or on edge, but Adis continued speaking. Right. So Bryce asks, what if I never got the knife? And Apollyon and Thanatos start looking real fucking nervous, real shifty. Right? Adis says, I do not know how Helena hoped you would be able to retrieve the knife from her homeworld. My brothers and I had doubts about Helena's plans. We continue to rest our hopes on reopening the Northern Rift so that we could continue the fight against the Asteri. If someone like you, a world walker, she's a world walker, did come along and Avalon was somehow not accessible for you to claim Thea's power, we still needed a way to fuel you up, as it were. He faced Hunt at last, right? So this is why Hunt was created. If Bryce could not claim, could not go to Avalon, claim Thea's star, they needed someone that would provide enough supplemental charge so that she could still open the Northern Rift. Right, still be able to do it.
Yeah.
That was Adis's plan. And then we're let's go a little more into the history of the Thunderbirds, and then we'll get to Azriel. Right. So the quote is, "I'm sorry," Hunt interrupted, "but are you implying that I was made by you two assholes as some sort of pet?" "Not a pet," Apollyon said darkly. "A weapon." He nodded to Bryce, "For her, whenever she might come along." "But you didn't know the timelines would overlap," Bryce said a bit breathlessly. "No, there were previous experiments," Apollyon said. "We hoped they would spread and multiply throughout Midgard, but the Asteri caught wind of our plans and removed them." "The Thunderbirds," Bryce said. "You guys made them too?" "We did," Ada said, matter-of-factly, "and sent them through the cracks in the Northern Rift, but they were hunted to near extinction generations ago. Blessing an angel with their power, a perfect soldier, it was a gift of poisoned honey." And then we also have, "You guys made the Thunderbirds to complement my power in case I never got the sword or the knife, and if I ever needed a boost to open the rift. But when they were hunted down, you made Hunt, and then I was born," right? So Hunt was always the plan for Bryce on Midgard, but they knew that Bryce was a world walker, right? They knew that the other piece of Thea's star was on Prythian.
Right.
Did they have a contingency plan? Did they have a contingency plan for Prythian, right?
Yeah.
So that brings us to Azriel, because
Right.
in theory, if she gets to Prythian, she needs to get back home. And Apollyon said they made others. So when they are in Prythian and Azriel charges up Bryce, the quote we get, this is all from Crescent City 3, chapter 16. "These," he motioned to the blue stones in his armor, "concentrate my power and allow me to craft it into things that resemble weapons, but they're still only magic power." Bryce's mouth twisted to the side, so it's like a laser. With the language now imprinted on her brain, her tongue stumbled over laser like it was truly the foreign word it was for them. "Do you ever use that power to charge people up? Charge? Fuel. Give your power to someone else to help their power. Are you implying that I could do such a thing to you? I'm pretty sure the concept of a battery won't have much meaning here, but yeah, my magic can be amplified by someone else's power." Hit the star. How much power? Gods, this was potentially a really bad idea. Experimenting with power she didn't know or understand. A little, just make sure you don't deep fry me. Bryce braced herself, sucking in a deep breath. Azriel struck before she could exhale. Searing, sharp power, a bolt of blue right into her star. Bryce bent over, coughing, breathing around the burn, the alien strangeness of the power. "Are you all right?" Nesta asked with something like concern. Was it his power or something about this world? Even Hunt's hadn't felt like this. So undiluted, 100 proof liquor. From the way the others' faces were illuminated, she knew her gaze had turned incandescent. Bryce extending her hands, now glowing white, to them. So when Azriel hits her with his power, she starts glowing. First she says it's like 100 proof liquor, and then she just starts glowing. Her eyes, her gaze has turned incandescent, and her hands are glowing with power. That never happens with Hunt. That has never happened with Hunt. So I think we have kind of three options for why Azriel could do this. And I think the most obvious one and the least crazy one is the parasite, right? So we have the parasite in Midgard. Hunt has been charging her up, but his power has been diminished because of the parasite. Azriel, Prythian, has no parasite. Bryce even says maybe it was something about this world. So let's just acknowledge that the parasite is a question mark here. And that could be the explanation for why this was so much stronger, so much more powerful of a charge up for Bryce than what she typically gets with Hunt. That's option one, which would mean that anyone from Prythian could charge Bryce up incredibly well, right? If Nesta had hit her with power, if Rhys had hit her with power, it would charge her up. It would be good. Option two is that this has to do with Azriel being an Illyrian. Right. So it's not Azriel specifically, but it is his race as an Illyrian that would allow him to do this. Right. So we know that the Illyrians were made by the Asteri to be their foot soldiers. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go listen to our Illyrians episode. One of my favorite episodes, I think. It's a good one. When Vesperus meets Azriel under the prison, right, she says, "A foot soldier, excellent. Kill this insolent female and free me. Kneel, soldier. Make the tithe so I may regain my strength and leave this cage." She only says make the tithe to Azriel. She has two other full, able-bodied, full power Fae warriors right there. She only says make the tithe to Azriel. Could this be a prejudice thing? Absolutely. Or is Illyrian magic for some reason better for Asteri? And as you guys know by now, we think Asteri power and Starborn power are essentially the same, right? The Asteri made the Illyrians. Did they make them in order to have a good battery pack, basically, a good source of magic, in addition to the foot soldiers,
Yeah, I mean, he's got 7 siphons on him, so he probably looks pretty juicy, if I had to guess.
Nice juicy steak for Vesper. We do have some interesting parallels drawn by Bryce between Illyrian power and Starborn power, right? And that is with the siphons and the prism that the Autumn King is doing his experiments with. So when Bryce sees Azriel's siphons, we get these. He motioned to the blue stones in his armor, concentrate my power and allow me to craft it into things that resemble weapons, but they're still only magic. So that's Crescent City 3, Chapter 16. Later, when Bryce goes back to Midgard, she sees the Autumn King's prism. She thinks, or she hears, whatever, they talk. This device refracts the light, pulling it apart, so I might study every facet of it. He pointed to a sister device positioned directly across from it. That device gathers it back into one beam again. I am attempting to add more light in the process of reforming it. If the light might be pulled apart and strengthened in its most basic form, there's a chance that it will coalesce into a more powerful version of itself. She refrained from mentioning the blue stones Azriel had wielded, how they'd condensed and directed his power. Instead, she drawled, and this is a good use of your time because, and that is Crescent City 3, Chapter 31. And then what's really interesting is Bryce uses this prism later to charge herself up, right? So she basically turns the prism into a siphon, directs her own power at herself, charges herself up, and winnows directly to hunt, right? She doesn't know where she's going, but she winnows. I mean, think how far away she's going. Actually, she's going to the depth charger at the bottom of the ocean, and she can charge herself up with this prism and go to hunt. So I think Sarah is basically saying here, like, hey, Bryce's power can be directed through a prism and made stronger. This should remind you of the Illyrian siphons. Is it kind of the same idea, right? Are the Illyrian siphons redirecting power, making it stronger, and then that could be used to power up an Asteri, to power up a Starborn Fae, and that is kind of done. That was done on purpose. That was an aspect of the design of the Illyrians that the Asteri made. So that's the Illyrian angle of it.
Yeah.
Now we have an Azriel angle, right? So this is Pre-Cog territory. I would say this is kind of Pre-Cog territory. Or do you want to respond to anything I've said before I get into the Azriel aspect of it?
I mean, I think on the Illyrian angle, I think we are given a lot of parallels of how the Princes of Hell positioned Hunt's creation and how we have theorized the Illyrians came to be, right? So the Princes of Hell say the Asteri believed that they had somehow, through their selective breeding of the Malachim, finally achieved a flawless soldier to serve them, that it was their own brilliance that brought someone like Hunt Athalar into the world. So them finally achieving a perfect battery pack for Bryce, and that being Hunt, and that being somebody that the Asteri thought they made, would pair really well with, if it is the Illyrians specifically, and Hell had an influence in making sure that the Illyrians were created so that the Illyrians could serve as Bryce's, I'm not even going to call it a contingency plan, because I think they probably planned for in case Bryce somehow got over to Prithian at any age, right? Like at any age, making it back to Truth Teller. If Hell had a hand in that, they were created so that the Asteri felt like it was their idea. Like, these are my soldiers. They're perfect.
Yeah.
They're perfect.
Even necessarily think, I know we talk about this a lot. I don't even necessarily think for this theory, Hell needed to have a hand in creating the Illyrians. I think it could have just been, hey, the Asteri made these perfect foot soldiers. They also happen to be perfect battery packs. And then Bryce is able to charge up with one of them because she has Asteri power too.
Yeah, totally. I'm just saying, Adis is saying we needed to make sure that you always had the ability to get a charge up. That was like why we were breeding Hunt. So
yeah,
we're just talking about that part specifically. So that's all.
No, I totally agree. All right. So let's get into the Azriel question of it. Could this be specifically about Azriel? And again, this is Pre-Cog. I don't know, but let's go back to these two quotes that we love so much now. Apollyon said, "You're wasting the gifts that other were given to you." Whatever. You guys get it at this point. He said, "The others like you," right? Is Azriel one of these others like you? We also get this quote, which I mentioned before. What if I never got the knife back? What if I never came to Avalon? What if I never got the chance or refused to come here or whatever? Apollyon and Thanatos shifted in their seats, either bored or on edge, but Adis continued speaking. I think it's really interesting that Apollyon and Thanatos are bored or on edge here and not Adis, because we have speculated and we think we have very light, very scant evidence. Well, Thanatos for sure, but that these might be our two princes of hell who have actually been to Prythia. based on, we know there's a Lord Thanatos in the Court of Nightmares, and we have speculated on Apollyon because of some carvings. And you guys can listen to our, I don't even remember, Helena and Silene episode, maybe, if you want to get into that one. However, if I'm a Prince of Hell, I'm just going to say, like, again, Pre-Cog, if I'm a Prince of Hell, I know that Bryce needs to get Truth Teller back. I know that Bryce can get to Prithian. I know she can't get home from Prithian, though, without a charge up, right? Who am I going to bet on being the person to be able to give her the best charge up? It's going to be the person who has the knife that she needs, right? So if I'm betting on anyone, she has to get Truth Teller. I'm going to give, I almost said Adis, I'm going to give Azriel that power that she needs in order to send her home. Right? Like, I don't know what the power is. We know he has shadows. We have speculated that he was perhaps visited by a Prince of Hell in his childhood, right? Did whichever Prince of Hell it was also give him extra power, whether it has to do with these 7 siphons or some kind of other power, in order to be able to charge Bryce up and send her home? Because she is able to send herself home after being charged up by Azriel, right? Like, this is, and it's kind of unclear. I will say it's kind of unclear, but I think based on everything else we've seen, we can assume that it was Azriel's power that allowed her to blow the horn and open the portal, since at that point she only had 2/3 of Theostar, and we've never seen her be able to open a portal without being charged up before.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I think I do think it's a little bit, like you said, it's a little bit far-fetched, but
Totally.
I think, one, it works well with the fact that many people think that Bryce and Azriel have a palpable connection, right? Like if Azriel was made specifically for Bryce, as Hunt was made specifically for Bryce, right? And we are told by Adis, like, we didn't mean for you guys to be mates. You're just made to help you. Like, he was made to help you. We didn't mean for you to love each other. Like, whoops. If Azriel was made for Bryce, a lot of this would make sense. And Azriel has Apollyon's power. Like, Azriel shadow walks. And, like, that is what Apollyon does when Hunt is in the dungeons. So, again, it is very much, very, very much theory territory.
Totally.
But if we're picking anybody to be the other of Hunt on Prithian, I'm picking Azriel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Hunt has one of Apollyon's powers, and it is lightning and storms. And then Azriel has one of them, and it is shadow walking.
Yeah. I do wonder if Cassian has it too. If Cassian has whatever this is too.
Yeah.
With the 7 siphons. And
with the 7 siphons. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they both could have been options. They were like, look, give me 2. What if one of them dies? They were
no, fair.
They were utilitarian.
Yes.
Literally, they made a whole race of Thunderbirds, and they were like, "Oh shit, they got murdered off. Like, we need to keep our options open."
Yeah,
totally.
No. And then it's so interesting, right? Because then Cassian and Nesta are 100% mates, always and forever, of course. But like, they're both attracted to made people, right? Like Cassian is attracted to Nesta. Azriel is attracted to Elaine. They're both made. They both have this Asteri connection. We think, like, is it love? Is it genetic engineering? Yeah. I don't know. It's very intriguing.
Very intriguing.
All right. Next and final question. Yeah. All right, Ronnie, what can Bryce do with the mask, and why is it different from what Nesta can do with it?
Yes. Okay. So Bryce, we get very long passages from Bryce that are quite coherent of her with the mask on. So I will just start there. Like, Nesta basically goes off onto like a different planet, seemingly, or becomes a different being when she is wearing this mask. I will also say that we have mostly seen Nesta, with the exception of House of Flame and Shadow, mostly seen Nesta wear the mask in extremely trying times. So I don't want to necessarily judge Nesta for what we saw of her behind the mask in the bog. But we'll go through the different scenarios and talk about some of the differences between. We'll start with Bryce. In House of Flame and Shadow, Chapter 77, Crescent City 3, Chapter 77, Bryce gets the mask from Nesta. So this is a big moment. This is a lot of trust that is built between Bryce and Nesta. She's handing over her parents as collateral. Very emotional. Hunt murmured, "What the fuck is that thing?" as if he could sense the ancient, depthless power leaking from the mask in Nesta's hand. But Bryce said thank you and reached toward Nesta. She could have sworn the very world, all worlds, shuddered as Nesta's hand crossed into Midgard and passed the mask to Bryce. Then it was in Bryce's gloved fingers, and it was unholy and empty and cruel. But the star in her chest seemed to purr in its presence. Bryce tucked it into her jacket, zipping it up inside. It thrummed against her body, its ancient beat echoing in her bones. Her starlight seemed to flicker in answer. Like whatever piece of Thea remained in it knew the mask and was glad to see it once more. So Bryce clearly has an affinity for the mask immediately. Hunt is like, what is that? Bryce is like, give it to me. Something inside of me has
It's
settled.
purring. It's
Yeah.
purring for her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, her star is purring for the mask.
Yeah.
And then we first see her wear the mask to deal with the harpy, right? So in the very next chapter, she comes back and then like the harpy is there and the harpy has been resurrected and the harpy is not really dead and not really alive. And so she takes a chance. She puts on the mask, hoping that it would allow her to control the harpy. And luckily it does. So she grabbed the mask and gave no warning at all as she fitted the icy gold to her face. Wearing the mask was like being underwater or at a very high altitude. Her head was full of its power, her blood thrumming. I'm going to pause here. This is kind of a similar description to what we do get from Nesta at the very beginning, being underwater. Kind of like suddenly we're seeing things in a different light. Her head was full of its power, her blood thrumming, pulsing in time with the presence in her head, her bones. The world seemed to dilute into its basics. Alive or dead. She was alive, but with the mask, she might escape even death itself and live forever. The star in her chest hummed, welcoming that power like an old friend. Bryce shoved aside her revulsion. Hunt was readying his lightning for Celestina, the mists glowing with each crackle, and the harpy had broken through Isaiah's power and was diving for Bryce again. Stop, Bryce said to the harpy. It was her voice, but not. The harpy halted. Everyone halted. Bryce, Hunt breathed, but he was far away. He was alive, and her business was with the dead. Kneel. The harpy fell to her knees in the snow. Celestina started. What evil weapon have you? I shall deal with you later, Bryce said in that voice that resonated through her and created ripples in the mist. Even the archangel fell silent as Bryce approached the harpy. Peered down into her narrow, hateful face. Truly soulless, a body with no pilot. Cold horror lurched through Bryce, despite the mask's unholy embrace. Maybe it was a mercy, she thought as she stared into the vacant, raging face of the harpy. Maybe it was a mercy to do this. There was no soul to grab onto to command, only the body. But the mask seemed to understand what was needed. Your work is done, Bryce said, her voice reverberating through the frozen landscape. Be at rest. It was sickening, and yet it was a relief as the harpy's eyes closed and she collapsed to the ground. As her skin began to wither, her body reclaiming the form it had known as death. And then I'm skipping a little bit, but when the harpy lay desiccated in the snow, Bryce finally peeled the mask off. So this experience, right, we get some of the same notes, and we'll read the Nesta bit in a bit, right? But we get some of the same notes of like, we feel the impact of the mask. We feel Bryce kind of distancing, going underwater, seeing things through like a very clear filter. But we get differences. Bryce feels her own emotions, and then she feels what the mask feels. So like, horror lurched through Bryce despite the mask's unholy embrace. Like she's still her behind the mask, even though what she is outwardly doing is not really her. And she is conscious of the fact that she is wrapped in this being that is not necessarily her. And she just, when she's done, she's like, rip, she just peels off the mask. Just like, okay. Which, yeah, in House of Flame and Shadow, we'll read snippets of it, but Nesta needs to be coerced to take the mask off, right? So like we are told that the mask will like leech on your soul and that people struggle to take it off. Bryce has no problem. She's like, okay. And we see her kind of throughout the battle too, like removing it and putting it back on as she needs. So let's contrast it to when Nesta wears the mask in the bog. So I'll skip the part where she's getting assaulted because it's kind of dark, but this is in A Court of Silver Flames. Starts in chapter 35, but really we get the description in chapter 36. And the Kelpie is like attacking her and she just puts the mask on her face. Her lungs stopped hurting. Her body stopped aching. She did not require air, did not feel pain. She could see dimly through the eye holes of the mask. The Kelpie was a lean white thing, a creature of pure hate and hunger. He dropped her as if in shock and fear, as if he hesitated when he beheld what she now wore. It was all Nesta needed. She could feel them around her, the dead, feel their long-rotted bodies, some mere bones and others preserved, half-eaten beneath their ancient armor. Their weapons lay nearby, discarded and ignored by the creatures of the bog, who had been more interested in feeding on decaying flesh, even long-rotted. I'm going to skip pieces, otherwise we'll be here forever. Her blood was a cold song, the mask a slithering echo to it, whispering of all she might do. Home, it seemed to sigh. Home. So the mask feels at home on her, interestingly, right? So Bryce's star is like, yes, like the mask is back to me. I just think it's interesting that the mask here, like we're actually having Nesta feel more of the mask, and the mask is like, yay, we're reunited. Nesta did not refuse it, only embraced it, letting its magic, colder than her own and as old, flow into her veins. The Kelpie mastered himself and bared his, whatever the Kelpie's being, a bitch, and we don't really need to do that. Nesta let the power flow through her, allowing the mask to do as it wished, raising the honored dead who had once been buried here and had suffered the sacrilege of serving an endless meal to the Kelpie and his ilk. And then unfortunately we do switch to Cassian's POV. So like
Yeah.
we get some of what Nesta is experiencing here, where she's very much taken over by the mask, right? We don't really get Nesta here. Like Nesta is not as much Nesta as Bryce is Bryce when she's wearing the mask. Nesta's just like, all right, the mask is taking me now. I am, and we get some reflection from her later, but she's like, I am not me, right? The power of the mask is me. And then we get Cassian's point of view. Nesta too emerged from the water as if lifted on a pillar from beneath. A golden mask sat upon her face, primitive but embossed with worlds and patterns so ancient they'd lost all meaning. Water sluiced down her clothes. Her hair had been ripped from its braid, and in her hand, clenched there, and then she has the Kelpie's head. Only silver fire burned behind the eyes of the mask. So Nesta is not Nesta. And it's kind of unclear. Like, we know that Nesta has Silver Flame's power. We don't know whether this is Nesta's power that's taken her over or whether it's the mask that has taken her over. The silver fire burning behind the mask here, to me, looks more like Nesta's power, but someone has taken her over. They had no self left. This is about the dead. Only her, only Nesta flowing through them. Nesta, Cassian whispered. Nesta released the Kelpie's head. The black water at her feet swallowed it whole. Cold power rippled toward them, and as it hit, Cassian let it surge past him, around him, yielded himself to it, because to stand against it would be to provoke the mask's wrath. To stand against it would be to stand against death itself, death herself. And then they bow to death. So this is much more of a, like, Bryce is very targeted with her wielding of the mask. Nesta is like this death force with it, right? It's almost like she doesn't know how to hone the mask's power, so the mask just takes her over. And admittedly, she's being targeted by this Kelpie, so she was gonna die. So I get it. Like, I understand. But it's a huge wield of power. And then he raised his head in time to see Nesta peel away the mask. So we know that she's later coerced into taking off the mask and has trouble doing so. Here she actually does just peel away the mask, which is interesting. He raised his head in time to see Nesta peel away the mask. What?
Feels very Gollum, like she's being corrupted. I don't know. That never occurred to me till now.
Nesta peeling away the mask.
Like each time she puts it on, it's harder for her to take it off.
Yeah. Like she's losing herself the more she wears it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then Nesta, after she peels it away, I'm just going to paraphrase, is like shaking, inconsolable, passes out. So I don't necessarily feel like we can attribute all of that to the mask, because she did again almost die, but it is interesting. So that's the first time that Nesta wears the mask, contrary to when Bryce wore the mask and took it off totally unaffected. Nesta passed out, but they did peel it off. So regardless, it was much more natural for Bryce, and she's able to be more targeted. There's more times we see Bryce wear the mask, right? So when they're in battle, when they're about to battle the Asteri, Bryce ran her thumbs over the mask's smooth brow. It looked like a death mask for some long dead king. Had it been crafted around the mold of some Asteri's face, fashioned after the hateful visage of a Daglin in that other world. We haven't really talked much about this long dead king situation. Maybe we can just put a pin in that and come back to it. It's not that mask. But then we get Bryce wearing the mask again. So she lifted the mask to her face, closed her eyes as she slid it on. The metal adhered to her skin. It sucked at her face her soul, right? So this is what the mask does. Like, it does want to take you. The world diluted again. Alive, not alive, breathing, not breathing, dead, undead. The star inside her flared brightly as if to say, hello, old friend. Yes, the ancient magic knew the mask. It understood its deepest secrets. Bryce turned to the wings, and in the shadow vision of the mask, where the wings were pinned, most held a twinkling light, the kernel of a soul. So she can see souls. She wasn't able to see it with the heartbeat, but she can see souls now. We don't get this with Nesta, right? We don't get Nesta seeing souls of the dead, even though we do get her raising the dead. The last scraps of their existences shining like a wall of stars. She'd been right. They never had been given sailings. It had been the final insult to the dead warriors, the shame of being denied a blessed afterlife. It would prove to be the Asteri's downfall. Oh, I didn't think about that. So maybe the souls had just passed on for Nesta.
Yes, that was what I was trying to remember. I was like, wait, there was a reason for this. Yeah.
The mask called, and the souls of the fallen answered, drifting from the wall like a storm of fireflies. And then we get like a lot of narrative that's coherent, right? So Bryce is just like going around with this mask on, right? And Rigelus confronts them. What do you think you're doing? It actually says, what the bright hand seeth glowing with power do you think you're doing? He stepped in and his eyes went right to Bryce's face. Maybe it was the mask. Maybe she had been pushed beyond her limits, but she felt no fear, absolutely none, as she looked at the bright hand of the Asteri and said, righting a wrong. But Rigelus narrowed his eyes at the mask. You bear a weapon you have no business wielding. In the streets beyond, this doesn't matter. Dead and undead, Rigelus's nature confused the mask. Alive and not alive, breathing and not breathing. It couldn't get a grip on the bright hand, and it seemed to be recoiling, pulling away from Bryce. She focused. You obey me. The mask halted and remained in her thrall. So we've talked about this before, right? But the mask recognizes Rigelus as an Asteri, seems to want to be with an Asteri, but Bryce is able to wrestle control of it and say, actually, I'm wearing you right now. Like, I am wearing you. We are working on this. Like, pay attention. You're with me. And the mask listens. And then we get, again, like more coherent activity from Bryce. Like they engage in a conversation. And then Bryce commands them, still wearing the masks, commands the Fallen, says, rise as you once were. Ice colder than that, and Nina flowed through her. Nana? How do you pronounce that? Nana?
In my mind, it's Nana.
Flowed
Actually, in my
her.
mind, it's Nana. Sorry, Nana.
Flowed through her toward the now distant wings. She could sense Hunt's pain, but Bryce didn't take her eyes from Rigelus. You have no idea what powers you toy with, girl, Rigelus said. The mask will curse your very soul. So he doesn't seem, we talked about this as well, he doesn't seem to be like aware that she is able to wield this without having a problem, or she will have a problem, we just don't know it. And then we again get Bryce yanking the mask off of her face. She has no issue taking it off, and then she slides it back on. We do start to get more discomfort as she puts this on. In my opinion, we get like stronger language around how uncomfortable it is to put on. Bryce slid the mask back on, and its ungodly leeching presence ate into her soul. But the star inside her seemed to hold the mask at bay. So it's very much her Starborn power. We think it's her Asteri power that makes her capable of not getting fucked up by this mask, basically. It seems like the mask wants to do the same thing to her that it does to Nesta and that it does to Hunt, and Hunt does wear the mask as well. I don't know if we want to get into that. I do have the quotes. But Bryce has more than either of them, right? So when Hunt wears the mask, Bryce basically gives him a bit of power to allow him to do that. We don't know what Nesta has. We know that Nesta is made. We think that that means she has some bit of Asteri power. So Bryce is able to be much more coherent when wielding the mask. She's not taken over by the mask when she is wearing it, the way that Nesta seems to be. And it's said to be specifically her star that holds the mask at bay. So the fact that Hunt is able to wear it but take it off eventually, Nesta is able to wear it and get it off like with difficulty makes me think that they have some star in them. We know that Hunt gets some power from Bryce. I assume that Nesta also has some little bit of Asteri power that makes her capable of doing this as well, but it's just less. And it just makes it way harder for them to resist the power of the mask than it is for Bryce. And that is why she's able to do what she does. So I have more on Hunt, but do you want to react to anything or add anything?
No, I agree. I think it comes down to being Starborn, like being born versus being made, right? I just think Bryce has more of this Asteri power. Like she's got more of it. It's also of Prythian, right? Like we know the mask is of Prythian. Her Starborn power comes from Prythian. So I think that's part of this too. Like this is connection to the cauldron, which is why maybe it obeyed her better than it obeyed Rigelus, who we don't know has that connection to Prythian. We don't know if he has it, to be clear. We're not clear on if he was or was never on Prythian. Yeah, which Nesta would obviously have too. But yeah, I think it's just if you're Starborn, genetically you have something that is yours that would protect you from the mask. But if you are made because you have claimed that power, because you have taken it, it's not like as ingrained in your DNA as it would be for someone who's Starborn. That's my thinking. It's not a crazy answer, but
no, but I think it makes sense. Sometimes the best theories are the ones that make a lot of sense.
I like an 11-part theory, complete with footnotes and a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you very much.
I mean, I like those too, but I'm more talking about how far-fetched it is versus how much it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Cool. All right. We are now going to get into our Throne of Glass spoilers section. So if you have not read all of Throne of Glass, thank you for joining us on this journey. We are on social media. We are wherever you get your podcasts. We are Dragons in the Details pretty much on all platforms. And if you like us, please subscribe. And we are going to start Throne of Glass spoilers in 5, 4, 3, What? All right, omissions. Yes, I do actually have a little bit more theory here, but I have an omission. Do you have an omission?
I don't have any omissions.
All right, so let's just do Throne of Glass omissions real quick. I'll go first. I want to preface this with this is a very could be something, could be nothing episode, but I've wanted to talk about this for a while. This seems like the best place to do it. I want to talk about the descriptions we get of Bryce, Aelin, and Nesta using their powers and how very fucking similar this is. So Bryce, we've talked about this a couple times, and the key is really hair. It really comes down to hair. But Bryce, we have Bryce let her magic flow, a thought, and her hair drifted around her head, borne aloft once more by the currents of her power, still amplified by what she'd seized from this mountain. So Bryce is using her power, and all of a sudden her hair is floating above her head. It's very Storm from X-Men, right? It's very like anti-gravity. We've had other examples where pebbles are rising up. She is defying gravity. Thank you, Alphaba. For Nesta, putting on the mask, we have hair drifting on a phantom breeze. Nesta glowed with silver fire, still wearing her mask. So again, it's her hair is drifting. There's suddenly a phantom breeze. It's not quite as strong imagery as we get with Bryce, but I thought it's that phantom wind again. Like there's some imagery there. And then Aelin, when Aelin steams away the reservoir outside of, can't remember the name, Aniel, Kael's ancestral home, we get the glowing flame shrank, steam rippling past until there was only a slim pillar of fire veiled in the mist-shrouded plain. Not a pillar of fire, but Aelin, glowing white hot, as if she had given herself so wholly to the flame that she had become fire herself. The firebringer, someone whispered down the battlements. The mist rippled and billowed, casting her into nothing but a glowing effigy. The silence turned reverent. A gentle wind from the north swept down, the veil of mist pulled back, and there she was. She glowed from within, glowed golden, tendrils of her hair floating on a phantom wind. All three of these ladies, it's like word for word the same in the way that they manifest their power, right? So I think, and this could totally just be Sarah saying, hey, when we have a lot of power, this is what it's going to look like. This is the physical characterization of that. It could totally be that.
Even likely, honestly.
I would argue it too. But I thought it was very interesting that she keeps this pattern throughout, and maybe there's some kind of link there too. I mean, obviously we have toyed with all of these women being Starborn. We've toyed with that idea, right? Like, or at least having a starry power, basically. However, there is one other person who has this too, where this happens to too, which might throw this whole theory out. So we get the old man, Darrow, just stared towards the battlefield at a loss for words as that army prowled closer and closer and closer as two figures took form at its head and walked unhindered toward the city walls, darkness swarming around them. Erewhon, the golden-haired young man, she'd know it if she were blind. A dark-haired, pale-skinned woman strode at his side, robes billowing around her on a phantom wind. Maeve, Lysandra, breathed. So Maeve also has this phantom wind. So I think it probably is just like, hey, this is a very powerful, badass bitch. She's here to fuck your day up. But could be something, could be nothing. All right. Pre-Cog, what do you have?
I have something that I feel like we've adjacently, maybe, I don't know. I don't know whether we've explicitly talked about it, but I want to explicitly call it out as a possibility. And it is out there. I acknowledge that it's out there. But in A Court of Silver Flames, when Nesta goes to get the harp in the harp chamber, you brought up in Selene's video that it is interesting that we are told the entire story in italics, very Daemati-like, right? Italics are usually only used when we're being spoken to like mind to mind as readers. And we are being told this story by Silene of that time period, right? Like the story of Midgard and the battle against the Asteri. And it's being told specifically to Bryce. And Silene is telling the story to Bryce. I think it's possible, and I think it might have been like a mistake, like something that Nesta wasn't supposed to hear, that maybe it was like confused because of what Nesta has, like the power that she has. But I think she might have caught like a sliver of the story when she was in the harp chamber. And that specific sliver of the story was, we've read it before, but I think there's something specific that makes it a sliver of Selene's story that maybe she wasn't meant to hear. Maybe she was meant to hear it, which would be really interesting. But maybe she wasn't. And that is This is Nesta touching the harp, right? Her fingers brushed the icy metal. The harp hummed against her skin, as if it still held its final note from the last time it had been used. Fae screamed, pounding on the stone that hadn't been there a moment before. That's all in italics, right? This is all in italics. Pleading for their children's sakes, begging to be let out, let out, let out. All italics. Now we're out of italics. Nesta had the sensation of falling, tumbling through air and stars and time. Now we're going to go back into italics. It was a trap, and our people were too blind to see it. Now we're out of italics. Eons and stars and darkness plunged around her. Back to italics. The Fae clawed at stone, tearing their nails on rock where there had once been a door, but the way back was now forever sealed. And they begged as they tried to pass their children through the solid wall. If only their children could be spared. Light flashed, blinding when it cleared. She stood in a white stone palace. The thing I think is interesting, the part I think is interesting that makes me think that maybe it was a sliver of the story, a sliver of Silene's story that Nesta caught somehow, was it was a trap and our people were too blind to see it. Our people doesn't sound like a third person narrator, right?
No, it's first person.
It doesn't sound like somebody was just like watching from above, like watching all of these Fae try to get back and get trapped in our walls. Like someone is telling this story. And it's someone whose people were the people who were trying to get back. And the only person we have seen tell that story in that spot was Silene. So was Silene narrating that story, and Nesta caught some of it when she was picking up the harp.
Yeah, I totally think that I'm going to talk about this in our next episode. But I totally think that it is a first-person POV that Nesta is suddenly getting, whereas Bryce gets the third-person POV from Silene, but Nesta is somehow actually in Silene's. I mean, I always thought this was Silene's story. It matches up with Silene's story, right? But it is a similar question, right? Of like with Bryce and Nesta using the mask, like Bryce and Nesta get slightly different versions of this story the first time they go into the harp chamber from slightly different POVs. The question is why?
Yeah, it seems like Nesta is getting a more real version.
Yeah.
Than Bryce. Like
Nesta also gets the Midgard version, right? Nesta knows what happened on Midgard. Silene never says it, right? She's like, people are trying to pass children through.
Yeah, right. She's like, she's experiencing it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do my Pre-Cog Corner. It is actually a COSM. So this was an email that we got from our listener, Braden. So, hey, Braden. And I read it and I was like, oh, this fits so well into what we're going to talk about with the Illyrians and the Asteri this episode, about them being a power source, that I think I just need to read it in our Pre-Cog Corner. So it reads, Dear Abby and Ronnie, I've edited a bit for clarity. Sorry, Braden. I was wondering, what if Rhys is a self-sustaining Asteri, or what the Asteri wanted to make all along? We are told he has Illyrian magic, but siphons never worked. His Illyrian power could never be meant to leave him. What if he is what the Asteri always wanted to be, what all their experiments are for? Rhys would be an endless battery of power. Bryce said he was on par with the Asteri, and he wasn't even in his beast form. We are told Rhys does experiments by Cassian, saying a visit to the prison isn't the time for one of your experiments. What if he is what the Daglin wanted when they took in / made beings like Thea and Annalius? Rhys wouldn't even know it, but he is the Asteri's dream being, near endless power, connected to the land, can fly, control people, wipe out armies, and with the other High Lords can raise the dead. Just wondering your thoughts. Love the podcast. With thanks, Braden. So the reason I like this is because we just talked about the Illyrians being battery packs, essentially, for the Asteri, right? Rhys is half Illyrian and Starborn, right? So Rhys could, in theory, just be self-charging this whole time, just be charging himself up with his Illyrian power. I mean, I know he doesn't have a star, but like in theory, he is like an Asteri who never needs to, or a Starborn Fae who never needs to charge up, if he's got this Illyrian power that can self-charge him up, and he can be this little self-contained ecosystem. So I really like that idea. I mean, it's wackadoodle and it's crazy and it's out there, but
I really like it. The only thing that is kind of broken about it is the fact that Rhys dies of draining, right? Like he died fixing the cauldron. Healing the cauldron.
Well, there's limits to everything. I don't know. But yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair.
But we don't know enough to know about whether, everybody has limits, even the battery pack for the Asteri. So I still think it could work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
And also, we think that maybe Rhys just left. So
yeah, we don't know that he died. He might have just gone on a little world walking journey.
Yeah, he might have just world walked, which would make it even better.
And I would very much like to talk about in our next episode the fact that Reese, who we think can be a world walker based on his lineage, has built his house in a thin place. That's a teaser for our next episode. So tune in next week.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a lot of things that I would like to talk about related to Reese in our next episode.
All right. That is it from us this week. We're going to do Bryce part 2 next week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this made sense. I think we dealt with a lot of big ideas here. We did our best to make them clear. But as always, reach out. Any questions or corrections or anything where you're like, guys, what the fuck are you talking about? It's fine. We love it. We can take it. You can find us on social media. We are Dragons in the Details Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We have a Discord server, Dragons in the Details. We have a website, dragonsinthedetails.com. As Ronnie mentioned, we have a bookshop. We're going to link it all in the show notes. We have some big things coming for you guys soon that we're very excited about. We're going to formally announce that very soon. So keep an eye out. That is it from us this week. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.